Okay, we're live. Hello, welcome to Cinema Savvy, and welcome to a brand new movie review. I'm Chris Garner, joined with George Aldridge and Tayte in the hour for the first time, I think, since Doctor Strange. So it's been a while for our review on Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, which is the sequel to the 2014 original, directed once again by James Gunn. As always, this will be a spoiler-free section. We'll get into spoilers later, and we'll let you guys know when we get to that, because I think this is still a week ahead of the US or something like that, isn't it? I think
they get it on this Friday, I think. So yeah, we have the week advantage again.
It's nice to get some films early every
and
now
we
and
get
then.
Star Wars. I mean, let's be honest, we get Star Wars a day early, but that might as well be like a month early, given like it's Star Wars. But yeah, fair play, Marvel. Like, keep doing it. Disney loved the English.
This is going to be amazing when we eventually get to Infinity War, which will be like the biggest Marvel event since ever. But we're going to start off with our thoughts on the first movie. We've probably talked about the first movie very sparingly on some of our other Marvel reviews, but we've never sat down and properly discussed it before. We don't have a review on it or anything like that. So, yeah, so you guys, what do you think of the original Guardians of the Galaxy and your thoughts on the second one based on the trailers?
Do you want me to go first?
Yeah.
But when the first Guardians came out, it was like, let's be boring. It was a risk. That's the only description for the first film before it came out. And I was blown away. It was so funny. They were so likable. Everyone works as a team. It was well directed. I thought to me, so it wasn't a perfect film. But as far as Marvel films went, it was one of the freshest films I've seen in a long, long time. And I got hooked. I saw it 3 times in the first 2 weeks of it coming out. I got the CD. Then I got the vinyl. Then I got the limited edition cassette they made for it. I had posters for it all over my room. A couple of T-shirts. I went massive on Guardians. And I feel that, I said this to you, Chris, before we hit record, that if I'd been about 4 or 5, this would have been my Star Wars. And I think since the first one's come out with the merchandise, stuff like that, this is very much especially for, I mean, a lot of the adults love it, the Marvel fans, why not? This is the most Marvel film maybe since Iron Man, since I've seen so many kids like talking about it, and the kids love this. And I think there's just something unique about the team. There's someone for everyone to like in it and stuff like that. But I was very excited for the second film, from casting choices to trailers to some of the music seen in the trailers. I was I wouldn't say I was very hyped, because in my honest opinions, I keep saying I'm completely done with comic book films, but like I'm excited for, like, I'm not Spider-Man, but I was excited for Doctor Strange because it was unique. I was excited for this. I'm excited for a few other ones coming out. I'm not going to go into individual ones because the DC fans will put a thumbs down. But for me being done with Marvel, for me being done with the comic book genre and just tired of it, not buying comics anymore, I wanted to see this straight away, and I did see it. So yeah, kind of.
Tayte, how about you?
For me, this film was it was one of those, okay, it looks like a space epic. I'm pretty sure Marvel could pull that off, and it became my favorite Marvel film to date once it came out. I think I saw it 2 or 3 times in cinema, which I rarely do with films. Yeah, I mean, the soundtrack kind of helped. I mean, the trailers looked good, and the soundtrack was engaging enough to hook you into the trailer. Like, I think there was one trailer which I really didn't quite like, but the soundtrack pulled it through, because I was like, oh, I kind of like the soundtrack to this. I'll go see it. I'll probably buy the soundtrack myself. And I feel like one thing I want to mention is the soundtrack was a huge selling point for the film. Massive. And when we go into this review, I want to say the soundtrack maybe wasn't as good, but it was still a very good soundtrack, and it still brought people into the film. And yeah, it was a space epic for the modern age. It was like a competition towards The Force Awakens a couple of years before The Force Awakens, and it worked. It really did, and it was a really good move by Marvel to bring out this film then, because at the time, I think, what was the films coming out before then? It would have been Thor 2, which wasn't that good.
Winter Soldier just come out.
Winter Soldier was a good film. So it was kind of like the start up again.
It was Iron Man 3, wasn't it? Iron Man 3, then Winter Soldier, then this was the third one, I think.
Yeah.
Iron Man 3, Thor 2, Winter Soldier, Guardians, then Ant-Man? No, then Avengers, then Ant-Man.
Yeah.
It was the one that you didn't have to watch the previous 5 to understand. It was the one that was completely original.
Now you do.
Here's the problem. One thing I do have a problem with Guardians of the Galaxy was when every single time you think, oh yeah, I can't believe I'm watching a Marvel film, they would go and remind you. They'd throw in Thanos, they'd throw in references to other Marvel heroes. And
Thanos was more integral to the plot in terms of Gamora and Nebula.
Yeah. Problem was though, they kept on reminding you that it was a Marvel film.
Yeah, it's when they did the Stones too much. I was like, okay, we're teasing Infinity War for those that don't know. But for a Marvel film, it was light on Marvel references. But it was just nice to go and watch a film that was not. We knew it was a Marvel film, but it was a beginning one. Like, okay, Ant-Man was the first of Ant-Mans, but you had to watch Age of Ultron and a couple of other Marvel ones to get it. And Guardians, you could chuck anyone into it that's never seen a Marvel film, and they're probably going to get it and love it. And it was so fresh to itself, and I think that's why, to me, it stood the test of time, along with the other stuff like that. James Gunn's writing. He nailed it. I would love to be be a fly on the wall for when he's writing these scenes or rehearsing it with the guys in the cast. Very
quickly, but I know we're still in spoiler-free section here, but I want to also say that this film could also be considered very standalone.
In the sense that obviously you got to watch the first Guardians of the Galaxy before this one. But I'd agree with that.
As far as Marvel is concerned, this is its very own standalone series, completely away from all the.
Now I think that might be shaken up a little bit with Guardians of the Galaxy 3 once we have the in-between films, kind of like how Thor Ragnarok is. Like that seems like it's bringing in more of the Guardians of the Galaxy feel to it.
Yeah, it's cosmic, isn't it?
Yeah. But if I give my thoughts on the first movie, so. Before this, as Tate was saying, we had the Iron Man films. You had Incredible Hulk, which I still don't know if that's technically part of the MCU at this point. You had Thor, Captain America. And whilst I didn't know loads about those characters, I knew of them. And I remember when Guardians of the Galaxy was announced on the list of upcoming Marvel films, I just went, what? Like, what the hell's Guardians of the Galaxy? Like, I know comic book characters. I don't profess to know everything about comic book characters, but I know most of the characters. I know some of the main storylines. I'd never heard of Guardians of the Galaxy in my life, so this was completely new territory for me. Did a little bit of Wikipedia search and thought, right, we've got a talking tree, we've got a talking raccoon. Like, what the hell is this thing? And then the movie came out, and whilst I won't say I like head over heels loved the film, it was incredibly entertaining. It was fun. It was an enjoyable time at the cinema. And you're right, it was nice to see something different in the Marvel Cinematic Universe at this point. And it was different. And I think that's why people took to it. It had a roster of characters with good team banter between them all. I think people really took to that. You see people still loving Groot. And now we have a kind of a new Groot in this movie as well. So there was a lot to like in it. I've only seen it twice, I think. I haven't watched it again and again and again like you have, George, or I'm sure you have, Tate.
Yeah.
My initial thoughts on the trailers for this one. So I did reactions to all the previous trailers, which you can find in the playlist of my reaction videos. And I don't think I disliked any of the trailers, but it kind of has hit a point now for me with superhero films where you kind of know what you're getting in for, especially with the Marvel movies. They don't tend to shake up the formula all that much, to the point where some people have said it is a very cookie-cutter formula. And I think because we'd already seen Guardians of the Galaxy 1, like any sequel has this problem. You're going in, it's not a fresh idea anymore. Audiences have an expectation of what to expect from this property, from these characters, and the dynamic it's meant to bring. So really, it has to go a more character-driven way, and we'll get into that much more with the review, because I know, George, you have a lot to say on the actual characters in this movie. But even with the trailers, with the music, and the soundtrack is great, but it didn't feel as quirky or fresh anymore, not just because we'd seen Guardians of the Galaxy 1, but because every movie trailer now is going off the hype of Guardians of the Galaxy by adding a popular song into it. Looking at just
Suicide Squad.
So exactly. So the whole movie of that was basically like a Guardians of the Galaxy music video. You had Justice League that came out. Thor Ragnarok's doing it now. So even the other Marvel films are kind of piggybacking off what Guardians of the Galaxy's done. So I wasn't blown away by the trailers or anything like that, but I was expecting another good time at the movie theater. So we'll get more into Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 now. So Tate, trusty IMDb guy, do you want to give us the plot?
IMDb guy. I do actually have the IMDb up here. So set to the backdrop of awesome mixtape number 2, because they're obviously not advertising here on IMDb.
Yeah.
Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 continues the team adventures as they unravel the mystery of Peter Quill's true parentage.
Yeah. And I think everyone knew that the story was going in this direction. Even from the first one, it's hinted at the very beginning as well, and it's kept very ambiguous. So that feeds nicely into this movie. Again, this is the spoiler-free section, so you don't have to worry about us giving anything away in this part. I think we'll start off, though, because with these Marvel discussions, there's a lot to talk about, and we've got loads more to talk about now. We'll start off with each of us, what your biggest positive with the film was and what your biggest negative was as well. This might be hard for you to think of a negative, George, because I know you really like this movie, but if you can think of one.
The best positive, I'm going to go on a loop and say characters. Narrowing characters down, there can only be one, and his name is Taserface. No, I'm joking. Yondu. Best thing about the film, Yondu. Negative, oh, crikey. What did I not like the least in the film? I would say the gold people. And you know what? That's them working as villains that I did not like them. That's the only way I can really. I'm sure there's other things that you guys are going to bring up that I'm going to agree with. So I'm going to have you guys bring the negatives to me.
Go on, Tate.
Well, we'll talk about the gold people when we get to the spoiler section, because I have my very own opinion on them. And their place within this film. But for me, the negative for this film was unnecessary humor in some places, completely out of place to the film. Obviously, this film tried to, because it's the sequel, it wants to go one better, and it tries to do that in every single category. And I think they nailed the humor in the first one, so why would they change that? And in some circumstances, they went for a different style of humor, and it just did not work. But once again, I agree with George. The best part of this film was Yondu. I'm also going to throw in there that I quite like the Drax Mantis mechanic as well. I was quite intrigued by that, and I quite liked those characters. They had some of the better lines of the film. But yeah, just unnecessary humor is the main negative.
That's one of my biggest negatives as well, but if I'm going to throw a different one out there, just for the sake of it. I do think the movie was a tad too long. It's 2 hours, 20 minutes. I'm not sure of the running time of the first one. Maybe it's a neat 2 hours, but that could be a pacing thing. With this one, it did feel every minute of its running time. And I think the film itself took a while to really get into the story of what it was trying to tell. For the first half hour, 40 minutes, it seems like you're just following these characters going through, you know, unstrung together space adventures. And that's fun. That could be a good cold opening. And this film, if it had just been how the film opens, if they'd have just stuck with that, it would have been a great cold opening for the film. And then they could have got into the story. But for me, it felt like very meandering, and it felt overly long for the story it was trying to tell. My biggest positive, Yondu, I'll agree with. Also seeing Kurt Russell and Sylvester Stallone in a movie again together for the first time since 1989 from Tango and Cash. Unfortunately, don't share any screen time, but it was great seeing them in a movie, and I think Kurt Russell nailed the character. He's a fantastic actor. He's charismatic as hell. And as I said, I feel like I've been a bit spoiled this year, especially with these months with Fast 8, with Kurt Russell in, and now I've got this one. So I guess that'd be positive as well. Thought he was
first great. Guardians of the Galaxy film was 2 hours long.
Right.
I will go off and say this from the bat. I didn't feel the length in this. The one thing I did feel was the credits length, and I was getting tired of "We Are Groot" in the credits. That's not a spoiler. That's just words on the screen. But for me, it flowed, and I didn't feel bored. But I think, I don't know whether that's just me. There was maybe the first couple of minutes, it was just wait, because that's in the trailers, you're waiting for some scenes to happen. But I thought the pacing was very on, and they got the split between it. Before I go into it, but they got the split of the people right and the screen time. But I thought the pacing was its strength, because I was worried it was going to do the classic, let's make it bigger, longer, better, CGI, this, that, the other. And just going off a quick tangent, I don't think they delved into that too much, and the unnecessary comedy bit, I don't know. I mean, this is going to differ to every individual person. But what I will say is, if there is a key scene where something comedic happens that shouldn't, is the dance-off at the end of Guardians of the Galaxy 1 not unnecessary humor?
Yeah, no, I'll agree with that.
But that's just all I'm going to say, because if we go into it, that's spoilers, so we'll chat about that later on.
I will say as well, I believe all of us have only seen the movie once. I did want to try and get in a second view, and George, you're seeing the movie again tomorrow. I might give this movie a second watch just to get my thoughts set on it. This is me just going off my first, and I went to see it on Friday as well. So this is 3 days ago now. So I'm still trying to recollect some things. We'll get into the character. Oh, God, sorry,
I might not go see it for a second time.
Can I?
Well, that's where I'm kind of at as well.
Can I tell the world the Deadpool theory that I told both you guys about before?
Yeah, sure.
With comedies, obviously Mark Kermode has his 7 laugh test. If you guys know that, that's actually a really good thing to follow. If you laugh 7 times, the comedy succeeded. With me, everything comes down to the second view. And I know this is like a lot of films, the second view, and it makes things worse or better. But a comedy, for me, for it to work, you have to be able to watch it again and again and still find it funny. So you get the classics like Dumb and Dumber, and you get some truly abysmal ones. Me, I would just say it, Deadpool. And the reason I call this the Deadpool theory is because this is what hit me. The first time I saw Deadpool, it was one of the funniest things in the world. The second time round, I didn't laugh once. I was bored, so bored, and this, that, and the other. Whereas Guardians of the Galaxy 1, I know that it came out before, but I hadn't invented the Deadpool theory at this point, obviously, by the name. And Guardians 1, I watched it the first time, and I was buzzing to see it the second time. And it was funnier each time, and as good. Whereas Deadpool, I was excited to see that second time, and it just killed me. And this is why for tomorrow night, I'm really hoping that I do really enjoy it the second time round. But like I said, I won't know until tomorrow night. But I'm hoping I find it as good. So let's say I loved it.
As far as the humor was concerned in our viewing, the only laughs came from the jokes made in the trailer, and that kind of concerned me. The biggest laugh came from the one point in the trailer where it's Mantis touching Tayte, and he's like, "Oh, love, sexual feelings for her," and Drax starts laughing. That was really the only time where the entire audience laughed, kind of, to any extent. And I don't know, like for the rest of the film, people obviously were enjoying it. I mean, I enjoyed the action sequences. I enjoyed some of the humor. But I just feel like this film, it tried too much in some areas, and it could have applied what it tried too much with to other areas. It could have reshifted that energy to make the film almost as good as the first film, but instead of that, it dropped below.
I'll agree with that.
Especially when we talk about like it in the spoilers section, I'm probably going to rip this film to shreds. And the problem is, I like this film, but I'm going to pick it apart because it could have been so much better.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. And actually, it was weird in my screen as well. And it wasn't the time I went to see it, it wasn't a peak hour, so it wasn't a packed theatre or anything like that. But no one laughed once, and it was really strange. I mean, I was chuckling a little bit at some things at the back, but for the most part, the audience was just dead, and you didn't get that in the first Guardians of the Galaxy. So I don't know if that speaks to the change up in the humor with this one. I don't know. It was just a really weird experience. And I'll say this without going into spoilers, but the scene in the trailer where Rocket's trying to explain which button Baby Groot has to hit, that was like completely re-scripted and restructured and felt really dragged out. And it was funny in the trailer because it was really concise, and they were in the heat of this moment and they were trying to get this bomb to work. He was trying to explain to Groot, but it felt very awkward. Like some trailers do that. Some trailers are framed differently because it's a completely different medium. It needs to be shorter. It needs to be punchier. And I think that a lot of the jokes needed to do that. There's a lot of jokes in this movie that go on for ages, and it reminded me of that horrible sloth joke from Zootopia. That just went on for too long.
I was going to say something about that scene because, obviously you see some things in the trailer and people react in different ways. I personally reacted positively to that in the trailer. I don't know anyone who actually reacted negatively. That wasn't unnecessary humor. That is the humor of those two characters interacting. It's the understanding and not understanding of the characters, and it goes across including the Drax character as well. The whole point is he doesn't understand certain things about certain customs as well. So, because of that, I was expecting, I'm expecting to see this joke played out in exactly the same way as it does here. But they changed it, and did they add an extra dialogue? Like, they made the scene possibly longer, or they used a larger cut of the scene just because they thought, oh, they're laughing at this, they want more of this, therefore we got to put more in.
No, it was edited for a trailer. One thing I want to say is I saw the IMAX. It was full, and a Saturday night, which is very rare for me to see a film on a Saturday night, so I like quiet screenings. And the thing is with IMAX is it's the Marvel. It's not the Marvel. It's the fans of the franchises that go to the IMAX screenings. So that's one thing I've always said. So I just want to say quickly, the atmosphere was. There were a lot of laughs at different times. So it was almost each their own, had their own moments. And I think that came to everyone's opinion of some characters. So I would laugh more at the Drax stuff because he's my favourite and the funniest for me. And a few Rocket stuff, whereas others were laughing at, X, Y, Z, ABC. But what I found, what Tayte did interesting about the laughs with the I was laughing came from the trailer. Is that not a good thing that 6 months on, people are finding the trailer joke funny?
I'll say I saw that trailer way too many times, so I never laughed at the ones from the trailer because I knew the punchline already.
And that's the thing. And normally I wouldn't, but I still found the Drax one funny. It's what's coming, and to me it was still hilarious.
Yeah.
But I think we'll talk about a lot of detail. But the whole of the scenes of Mantis and Drax had moments like that, which I loved, which was some of the strongest points of the film. But I can't get into that too much yet.
I think we should go into the characters now then, and how we've got it structured in our plan is that we've got the characters paired off because I think that the characters are more interesting with the person they're playing off against in the movie rather than an individual entity in this film, unlike the first movie. So first off, we've got Star-Lord and Ego the Living Planet, which is Kurt Russell's character, his dad. This was the crux of the story, and that's both a good thing and a bad thing. It's a good thing because this is without a doubt the most interesting character stuff out of any of the pairings for me personally. It was great seeing this develop and just to have a character like Kurt Russell as well. And I'm not going too much into what his character is in this, but it's almost like a character that's you couldn't even imagine. It's someone completely different than what we've seen in the MCU of his powers and his capabilities. But because that is the focus of the story and Guardians of the Galaxy is inherently a team-based film, to me it felt like everyone was kind of just treading water. The storylines for everyone else weren't as engaging. It felt like the writers didn't really know what to do with the characters, and they felt like they were just there for the ride rather than playing an integral part to the story.
Well, personally, there are so many different pairings you could do for this film. I mean, I don't know if we would include this in the spoiler section or not, but there is a lot of fallings out between some of the pairings within the Guardians of the Galaxy. And I know that the first film was they don't know each other. They now have to work together, even though they probably don't like each other. And that kind of dynamic worked because they could play off each other with insults and stuff like that. And it worked out really well. Like you have that entire scene where they're sat there discussing the plan on how they're going to take on the other guys, like with Yondu's help and stuff like that. But in this film, they take what is there and they rip it apart. That works. However, in some cases, the way they ripped it apart and the fact that sometimes the characters were separated in various different parts of the film wouldn't allow them to mend themselves back together. And it felt like quite a lot of the plot lines and relationships were almost forced upon us. Like they weren't eased into it, they weren't suggested, they weren't shall we say, subtle, as is which would make a good relationship work, like between different characters. They were all forced upon us. And we can talk about it a lot more in the spoiler section, obviously, but with Star-Lord and Ego, the main theme of films this year seems to be family and legacy. I mean, we've got so many films that have been so far this year and so many to come later on this year. Family and legacy seems to be the main theme that film studios are going for. And this film kind of worked, but at the same time, when we go into the spoiler section, when we go into the eventual kind of way this relationship turns out, it didn't feel right.
George, we're being very negative on this. Do you want to help?
Sorry, I was trying to get a family count, so he was going to outbeat the fast trailer. Right, let's time. Right, characters. Before I get into Star-Lord and Ego, I'm going to go into my entire thoughts on Guardians of the Galaxy characters. This is one of these rare films, and to me, there's nothing like it. There's only been one of them, so it's really odd to talk about it this way. I look forward to seeing this film to see the characters. I couldn't care. This is really weird. This makes it sound like a Transformers film, which is not. I couldn't care less about the story or what happens.
So
In
what
this
you
case,
want is a TV show.
No. Wow, actually, you know what? Give me 12 hours of Guardians of the Galaxy on this budget, and yes. My thing with...
As a sideline, by the way, the video game Guardians of the Galaxy, the new Telltale one, it's actually really good.
Oh, is it already out?
As a side thing, yeah. Episode 1 is episode 1.
There is a Guardians of the Galaxy TV show, isn't there, for kids?
Animated, but I'm not
unsure.
for. So basically, with these, I just want to see these characters on the screen, how they act with each other, how they are presented to us, what happens with them. I don't necessarily. It's really hard to talk about because at the end of the day, you do care about a film story, but for me, the goal of seeing these films is the characters together and what's going to happen. And I know to some that sounds like a plot, but to me, it's not. It's very different. I love Drax. I love the way he does things. I really like sort of Rockets. I love how just they work as a unit, as an ensemble piece.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas you get, I'll be open with this. Why do I see a Transformers film? Because I know it's dumb shit, but I enjoy it. Why do I see Fast and Furious films? Because I love The Rock and I love over-the-top action scenes. Why do I go watch Star Wars films? Because I love Star Wars. I know what I want to see in films. And guys, this is a really bizarre thing where to me, I just want to see these characters on the screen together. And what I loved about this is I tried to kind of message you guys on Facebook, but I couldn't because it would have been an essay. This sequel was character driven, and that's such an easy thing to say, but essentially the plot doesn't really kick in. Well, the sort of, I know the climax is the last 20 minutes, but there's not really a development. Maybe from the 10th minute, there's the development of what happens in the entirety of the film. And then later on, say in the hour and a half mark, I'm going to guess, then part 2 happens of story. But the whole thing in the build-up to this has been characters and what's happening between these guys. And yes, there's subplots, but that's why I'm watching them, because I want to see these guys on the screen together. And what you were saying about ripping the family apart and stuff, I love that they did this, because they say sequels have to go darker, which 99% of the time I would agree with. Sequels do need to go darker. But for a Marvel sequel that's about a talking raccoon and a tree, how do you make a Marvel sequel darker? Well, essentially, you can't change the color palette. This isn't DC. So what they did...
They changed the color grading because they filmed on red.
What, this film or DC?
Yeah, this film, Guardians.
I didn't actually notice that.
They filmed... on the credits they said they filmed on red, which means that the color ratio would have been a lot vast, so it would have been bigger, so more colors would have popped out on screen. And
I did notice that in a lot of the environments, especially the Ego planet, looked beautiful.
Yeah.
Guardians, I've lost my train of thought. Damn it,
you talk about sequels darker.
Yes, darker sequels.
To the point where Thor calls itself Thor the Dark World.
Which was just crap.
Yeah, sorry, go on.
I don't want to pretend Doctor Who. I'm a serious actor. Becomes a terrible orc for a villain. This film. They're taking these characters aside, and they're setting up sort of traps that you want to see how they're going to fix them, how that's going to happen at the end of the film. And for a sequel to go darker, a lot of the time it's the story and the plot and the hero journey. I think is always the correct term, especially for like Empire Strikes Back. But for Guardians, it was each character except Groot, who still had some kind of things to do, and Gamora. I felt like they worked as a sequel, that they were developed further on than the original, especially Nebula and Yondu. When they announced these guys were going to be kind of part of the main crew, I really liked Yondu in the first, and I hated Nebula. And I was there like, oh, can they really have 7 main characters and develop them and give time? But you know what? I've come out of this film, and I feel like every single character, except Groot, except Gamora, has been further developed, which is what I wanted to see from the Guardians of the Galaxy film. Like I said earlier, and this is such a weird tangent, I am only here to see these characters. Mm-hmm. Yes, the soundtrack is amazing. Yes, the CGI is amazing. Yes, there's a lot of great things, but for me, the core of this is the guys, the Guardians of the Galaxy. And that's how I felt going into this. And to me, everything was about them. And I know it's such an easy thing to say, but if I'm going to defend the film, I I'm going to be trying to defend it across the next, like, however long this review is going to take.
It's like we're only on the first point.
I know.
It's insane.
If I want to go,
keep defending. Some about to attack.
If I want to talk about Star-Lord and Ego of the Living Planet, the chemistry between Chris Pratt and Kurt Russell, I can genuinely see Chris Pratt as a young Kurt Russell after watching this film. Yeah. Those guys could probably the time of life on set, and it's reflected in the screen, especially when they've got some of their scenes together. It's really hard to talk about as pairs, but as we go through each guy, like Star-Lord, at the end of the first film, we know we need to hear about his father, stuff like that. That's the point of this, is to learn more about his father. And I feel they nailed it in this because his character arc is essentially just him and his dad. And what they do with it is very interesting. That's all I can say. I'm going to spoil it then. Someone else take it, because I'm in my own little slow world here, and I want it to be quick.
Okay, I want to talk about the possible development of Groot, because Groot was a big problem in this film for me.
I can tell you why.
Groot in the first film had, I mean, there wasn't really much of the character developed. He was the comedy piece of the film. He said 3 words, I am and Groot. And his only character development was that he was able to say the word we. And now in this film, we have him smaller, which means he can do less. He's a lot weaker.
Tate, he can sell more merchandise.
Yeah, I was going to say,
their
CEO literally said that.
Here's the problem I have. The only further character development that he can have is him dying, like completely dead.
You kill a baby, you monster.
You could.
Jason Statham will say all
DC. They would kill Groot.
Right, the way I see it,
with fire.
Groot.
Shit, Tate, that got dark. Well, this is the sequel. We get to be darker in the sequel.
In a furnace or thrown into the sun.
Groot did very sacrifice.
Thanos doing hammer
baseball bat
him into the sun.
Groot was the comic. Well, I can't say he's the comedy relief for the first one, because they're all comedy relief within each other. Groot had the interesting arc that how can a 3-worded tree be bothered and have people care for it? Well, I know loads of people love the. I got sad, like I got a bit sad when Groot kind of died-ish.
Well, when he said the word "we."
No, not when he crashed into twigs. And I feel that with this, like, what can you do? If you just go and get Groot back as a fully grown tree, he can only say, we are Groot again. He can't really have a purpose, then be in the way. Whereas you have Groot small, it triggered some moments that we'll talk about in spoilers, that he was able to do stuff he wouldn't have been able to do as a fully grown tree. That doesn't mean you introduce another character.
But the problem I'm having here as well is the fact that we've seen him, if he gets shattered into pieces, he can just grow again.
We don't know that.
This happened before.
It happened once, because Rocket took the pieces and planted him in soil.
Yes.
If he didn't take the pieces, Groot would have died.
Probably. But what's to say that can't happen again?
Well, it might, but they're not going to do it again. Marvel aren't bad enough to... Actually, they're pretty good at sort of... what's the words?
Reusing characters.
Yeah, recycling character tropes. But they wouldn't do a Groot sacrifice 2 out of 3 films.
I'd say even in the comic books, there's a wealth of, like, I think every single Marvel character at some point has probably died and come back to life through some bullshit memes. So that doesn't really bother me about that. What I will say is, though, that Baby Groot wasn't in this movie as much as I thought he was going to be, so that did shock me. From how much we see him in the trailer, I thought they were really going to play up this thing where... Because one of the best dynamics in the first movie was Rocket and Groot, that friendship between the two of them.
That was the only thing that you cared about. It was the fact that Rocket was going to lose his best friend. Yeah. However, in this film, it doesn't feel like he's his best friend. It feels like
he's a baby.
Because he's a So I thought they were going to play up the whole Rocket trying to be like a babysitter to him, and they kind of do that with the opening credit sequence where they're all trying to make sure that the baby's okay while they're off fighting this huge alien squid. That's not a spoiler. That's in the trailer. And then Baby Groot is kind of more or less dropped for most of it and is just a background character. And I get that the focus is more on Star-Lord. I don't think we really get much with him.
We get some really nice touching Groot moments with the with Yondu and Rocket, which I will talk about later because I can't spoil the film. No, I felt Groot had a purpose, that he was so cute and adorable, and when he was getting bullied, it was tragic. There was some really sad moments where I wanted to cry for him. And I think they got the baby role perfectly by having being a talking tree. And what I was worried about was the button scene from the trailer that did make it into the film, but they actually handled that a lot better than I thought they would, given that it did turn out to be in the last half hour of the film. I guess I can say that. But Baby Groot is, I mean, the best description I have for Baby Groot is that I said to Chris, I almost bought a Pop Funko of him. I despise Pop Funkos and that whole gimmick with them, and the fact I almost bought one is quite scary. Baby Groot, I think, the way I see it is that credit scene when he's in the plant pot, I reckon because that was so well received and loved, that's probably why they kept him as a baby. But then again, I could be wrong. James Gunn could have planned this because I think he's planned some of. I think he's already planned Guardians 3.
Yeah.
James Gunn really knows what he's doing. I love his writing. I like. He seems to be getting on with Marvel. He's saying the right things. He's doing the right things. His PR's perfect. And Baby Groot, I'm happy he didn't get as much screen time because, to me, like I said, I'm here for the characters. They need to split it. Not necessarily evenly, because at the end of the day, Star-Lord's the main guy. But as long as people are being able to develop their stories, you can't really develop the story of a baby. So by having him as a side character to other people's stories, I really enjoyed how they handled Baby Groot. I handled a lot better than I thought. He's going to sell an absolute monster of merchandise. Like this year, the merchandise war is BB-8 v Baby Groot. BB-8's obviously going to win, but Baby Groot is going to be around there. And the Marvel CEO even said like a year ago, we want to push Groot's merchandise because he's the one that's going to do it for the next film.
Yeah, and actually talking about Star Wars, there you just mentioned Force Awakens. I think it is fair to compare this film to, say, The Empire Strikes Back, and I know that seems to always be the formula that sequels are compared to with that movie in terms of its structure, but the fact that you do split the team, and I think where Empire succeeds as opposed to this movie is because although you split the characters, thematically the stories are tied together and culminate in the ending, whereas in this one you have the kind of like Luke and Vader again with the whole like father and son thing, you have the Star-Lord and ego thing, you have a little bit more going on with Nebula and Gamora, but besides that, like Baby Groot, even Rocket and Yondu, not really much is amounted to that storyline personally for me. And Drax and Mantis, that's one element that's just repeated from different scenes. There's not much in terms of story with the characters. I know, George, you said you're only in it for the characters. That's fine. I completely see that. But I don't think the split worked, and that's why... And even with the acting as well, this may just be me as well, I felt like all the actors felt really tired and bored in this one. I don't know if that was to do with the script and I just wasn't feeling it as much. Maybe the humor wasn't as good, but that great just camaraderie that all the actors seem to have in the first one, I didn't really get that sense of in this movie, and that messed with sort of like my perception on the film. It felt like they all kind of phoned it in for the most part. I don't know if that was just me though.
I don't know. I felt like they were pretty buzzing. I mean, I've seen a lot of their press stuff recently, and they literally all seem to be like mental with one another. Like these guys, let's add another one. These guys could be seen as a bit of a family from what I've seen. I didn't think they phoned it in at all. I mean, to be fair, some of it's hard because you do have two CGI characters, but going off the Rocket and Yondu stuff together, I thought that was the strongest dynamic. There's the one scene that overshadowed the entirety of Star-Lord and Ego scenes for me with Rocket and Yondu. Two great scenes, but one character-driven scene. But I don't know. I mean, it's so weird to compare it to Empire. Like I get why the comparison's there, but I possibly can't see any comparison between this and that because this is a space comedy, whereas that's like
a space opera.
I know it's a space opera, but
rather than the tone.
I get the structure of the splits, but then if you look back to Empire, they're not smiling with one another in the film as well, though. Like they're all smiling at the end of episode 4, but in Empire, there's the only remote thing of that is Han trying to get on Leia in a spaceship.
But you still had the great character banter there that has been established from the first one and was
but
I don't think you really had that with this one.
I think you had it perfectly in this one. I'll disagree on that completely. The character banter was... I absolutely loved it. Rocket and Star-Lord fighting for who's control of the ship. Even Nebula was half redeemed, which we'll talk about later on. I felt that the character banter with one another was still there and was very strong and prevailed because it is about the characters and how they take the piss out of each other, essentially. And I feel that works, especially with the whole, the dick measuring contest they kind of have in it. They even make a joke about that. But I don't know. I felt the characters. I thought that was the strongest point on that. I would disagree on that one. I
Should
don't
we
know what
get
Tayte has to
into?
say.
Yeah. I did like the Rocket and Yondu mechanic. I think it brought forward probably the most heartfelt moments of the film. But can we very quickly, because it's the final relationship we need to talk about, Drax and Mantis.
We also have Gamora and Nebula as well.
I don't really want to talk about Gamora and Nebula because
I think there's more to say with that, in all honesty.
That relationship had some good elements in there. It brought a whole new side to Nebula as a character. But I feel like it's more of a spoiler section thing as it involves characters from other parts of the MCU, shall we say.
Well, we already know that Dad's Thanos from the first film.
Yeah.
And that she wants to kill Thanos, and they don't like each other.
Yes.
But I know what you mean about that scene.
We don't want to spoil the biggest kind of...
Yeah.
Basically, the whole reasoning for why she wants to go in that direction.
I just kind of wanted to bring up, Karen Gillan's acting, and I've mentioned this to you guys before. She is playing like the scorned child of Thanos, which is the character of Nebula, but she's so one note with it. She's such a one-dimensional character all the way through. Even if she does have a changing character towards the end of the movie, that's not a spoiler, of course, you're going to know that that's going to happen, but she plays it all through like gritted teeth and just constantly mean. And I know that the character's been through a lot, but you can show different shades of that in different ways rather than just playing it the same way, to the point where I really just dislike the character of Nebula because she is that one-dimensional with it. And I think as a backstory of a character, she could be one of the most fascinating Marvel characters ever written, maybe. But I just don't like. Maybe that's the direction. Maybe that's just.
But I'm willing to say that her backstory is the way that she behaves in that way.
Yeah, I was going to say that. We will talk about that later because.
Yes. But Drax Mantis, I personally think this was possibly one of the better relationships between two people in the film. It worked off really well as a person who doesn't understand society because of what they are, even though they are integrated into society, and a person who doesn't understand society because they've never been shown society before, and they've never been shown that kind of thing. And it's an understanding from both sides. And I think it was just really kind of fun to see this kind of dynamic of, kind of say, like complimentary insults, complissalts being thrown between them. It was really fun to see that kind of play out. And I feel like that kind of, it softened Drax a little, and at the same time it brought a little bit more from his own backstory forward, which we got a lot more of in the first film, but this one just kind of fleshed out slightly more.
Drax is, I would say everyone knows I love wrestling. Everyone knows I love The Rock. Batista's a guy that when I started watching it, he was like the guy at the time The Rock had left, for those that don't know the wrestling history. And Batista was this big, tough guy. Like, I loved him. I loved watching him. When he was first casting the guy, I was like, okay, he's a big, musty dude. That could work. And then I still remember to this day seeing him do comedy. I was shell-shocked because even in WWE, the most open of places, for like sort of entertainment promos, he never really did a comedy. He never had comedy, not routine in it, but he never really did it. He was the muscle guy. And the first Guardians was one of the most refreshing things I'd ever seen. Then you look at him in Spectre, he's back to Mr. Serious, but I feel like whenever he plays Drax, he's genuinely having the time of his life. That's how I feel when I watch him on the screen. And I know that I kind of get that in the character, but that laughing scene, like, it still gets me. But I'm just thinking of some of his other scenes, which is making me smile, especially when it's about sort of mothers and fathers. There's some truly wonderful scenes. I think of Mantis, because they're polar opposites, they worked well with one another. But with Drax, if you look at the first one, it's, I forgot the villain's name. That's a classic Marvel trope.
Ronan, the accused, the accuser, the destroyer, whatever his name was.
Generic man covered in makeup.
Ronan from the Yakuza.
Probably. Would have been funner. Ronan, did he kill Batista's wife and children, and that's why he wanted to
kill
him?
In the comic books, Thanos is the one that killed Drax's family, but they changed it in the movie to Ronan being the one. I know that Thanos.
No, hold on.
He says at the end that Thanos basically hired him to do it.
Yes, like Thanos was the boss of it all, but Ronan was the one who actually killed him. Whereas in the comic books, Thanos first-handedly killed his wife and daughter.
Yeah, so what I felt with Drax, because his story was done in that first film, like, what could you do with him story-wise other than him be comic relief? And I think the Mantis, not relationship, but their on-screen, how they were on screen with each other, it made up for that he didn't have a story as such, but he was integral to some of the scenes and how they progressed with him. That's how I felt with Batista, because to me, actually, I would add Gamora. I'd say Gamora is to me, the most pointless character in this whole cinematic universe. She's up there with Natalie Portman and stuff like that. I don't care as always how Alan's called and could probably kill me. You're wasted in these. Batista, why did I go on a rant? I forgot what I was going to say already. Wow, and there's so much to comprehend about this film. Batista, yeah, well, Drax, like I said, his story's done. What can you do with him to make him improve and whatnot? And they did it by introducing Mantis, and I've forgotten, so can someone else take over?
No, I agree. Like, Drax's character was, I guess, quite a one-dimensional character. Like Groot, he was very limited by what he could say, and the only way that he could kind of comprehend that was saying things in different contexts. Now, bringing in Mantis, a character who can kind of convey thoughts and feelings, shows like that he has the ability to feel more, and maybe he isn't showing us everything, and maybe that'll come forward in later films, just kind of with maybe a bit more of an emotional performance. Maybe.
I think once we get to Infinity War and he comes into contact with Thanos, I think that's where we're going to get the most interesting stuff with the Drax character, because he is a very one-note character inherently in the comic books. He takes everything literally. That's a motif of the character that basically defines the character. I will say for Mantis as well, I'm unfamiliar with the actress, Pom Klementiev. She was so endearing in this movie. She was one of my favorite characters. I loved all of the scenes. And when I watched the trailers, it was a character I was kind of apprehensive for, because that whole joke about she feels people's feelings, she's an empath, and the whole Drax scene. George, you'll remember this from the first Transformers film, where Ratchet's like, the boy's pheromone levels suggest he wants to mate with the female. It reminded me of jokes like that. And I thought if she's going to be doing this the whole movie, it's going to be really old. Yeah. But she was like a genuinely likable character that did have an arc, which she I like.
She had a backstory.
Yeah, she was a really nice character, and I look forward to seeing more of her in the next Guardians of the Galaxy. Whether they're going to bring her into the Avengers Infinity film, I think they're pretty much going to lump everyone into that movie, so she'll probably get something to do. I think that basically covers all of the characters for us, unless you want to talk about the Gold People. And I know they probably have a name and a race. I can't remember it, so the Gold People. A lot of it will be spoilers, but...
Picture the... I'll talk about them. Picture the 1929 classic science fiction film Metropolis. Take the robots, liquidize it, apply paint to everyone in the room. This is the Gold People. They literally look like Oscar statues. I'd imagine that's how someone would dress up as an Oscar statue if they were going to a party or something. And I feel that in that one moment, when they were introducing the trailers, so I can vaguely talk about them. They're one of the reasons they helped progress the plot as such. They hire the I would say this is kind of the plot. They hire the Guardians to go fix a job, and their reward, and it all goes tits up. That's the plot. And the Gold People, they kept coming back into it, and it was an intriguing. Like I say, with sci-fi, I'll say sci-fi as a whole. We always get like aliens and stuff like that, which is great. I like seeing original things. The Gold People, I didn't like them, but I guess it was kind of cool to see a sci-fi film where they had this really out there, really random race of people. And yeah, it worked, because I'd imagine somewhere in the world there is probably some golden people.
Yeah. I have to... I'm questioning it. Actually, I'll just question it when we get to spoilers, because I want to talk about the Gold People. Do they actually have a name?
Probably somewhere.
Because
I'll have a look.
There was something very interesting which I kind of felt from the film, because I want to say that what you just described wasn't technically their main focus of the film, and wasn't technically what they intended.
It's the Sovereign People, by the way.
The Sovereign,
yeah. High Priestess and the leader of the Sovereign People. That's all it's got.
Yeah. She does actually have a name, but I cannot remember her name.
Aisha or something like that.
No, Aisha. But anyway, I think they were needed in this plot, especially for expanding the MCU. And I feel like they may have a part to play later to come.
Oh,
yeah, but go on, sorry.
Yeah, Tate said it, expanding the universe. I think there will have parts to come. That's all I'm going to say with non-spoilers. Shout out to Sheila for saying Roland's Thranduil. I remember that. I don't remember The Hobbit, though. It was awful.
Thranduil, yeah. Lee Pace, yeah, he played the villain in the first movie, in the first Guardians of the Galaxy. But yeah, for me, when I saw the trailer, I mean, the Gold People are in the trailer, and when I was watching the movie, how it was structured, it felt like it was just going to be a cold open. We were introduced to this alien people that had given this task to the Guardians. They had to achieve it, and then boom, we'd be on our merry way into the plot. They kept coming back, and I really kind of didn't like that, because I know they're kind of like a sub-villain role, I'd say, in the movie. That's not giving anything away. But I didn't really care for them. They should have just served as an opening scene, I think. But then, without giving anything away, when we do get to the credits and what they might be setting up with them, it did make more sense that they might want to focus on them a bit more. So I'm a bit conflicted about how I think about it. I think narratively, they should have only been in it for the first scene, but with Marvel and wanting to set things up, it's nice that we have got a few more scenes with them so we can understand them and their culture and their history, and what it's going to lead to for the rest of it. And we can talk about that in the spoiler section. We need to talk about the action and the CGI as well. And I think, Tate, what you said at the first part of the introduction of this review is pretty much what I think about it as well. It does suffer from the sequel trope of gotta go bigger, gotta go badder, and this definitely has a lot more action than the first one, definitely a lot more CGI heavy action. I'm not going to bash the CGI in this movie, quite opposite. I thought the CGI for the most part was incredible. I said this to George as well when he went to see it on IMAX. I said, this is going to look incredible on an IMAX, and I'm sure it did. The Planet of Ego looked amazing. I thought that in the trailer it looked even better on the big screen. And most of the action was quite fantastic, especially when we get towards the end of this film. The one problem I have, really, and this is the problem when you don't have the limitation, when you can pretty much do anything you want, the peril that you put your characters in when you do all these crazy CGI stunts. If you do too much of it, it can take away any kind of tension with the characters. Now, we know that no one's inherently going to die, because they're going to filter, and they pretty much already confirmed that they're going to be cast in Infinity War. When you have characters dangling out the back of a spaceship as it's coming into the atmosphere and it's bouncing off everything, and they don't have a cut or a bruise or broken bone or anything, when you have characters falling from great heights and landing just with ease on both feet like a cat, and they're fine, when you keep doing that and you keep getting more and more extreme with it, your brain just kind of goes, well, they're going to get out of anything. There is no tension now in this movie. And I did feel that some of the action did get a bit over the top in that respect. But I mean, I can't criticize the sound effects or the CGI. There was even a scene in this movie involving a plane that was trying to shoot at someone. And I swear, I know ILM works on this movie. I swear I heard some Star Wars sound effects, like the spaceships and things like that on it.
I'm really actually surprised that I didn't hear any Wilhelm screams.
Because there were no humans destroyed.
True. So what you're saying is that's going to come in the Infinity War. Literally, it's just going to be non-stop Wilhelm screams in the background.
Can you imagine if they used it on Thanos when he dies?
I say, what about Tony Stark dies? They Wilhelm him. CGI was beautiful. The only thing that could have improved Ego's planet was literally that Jurassic Park theme of when they showed the dinosaur for the first time. That's how good that planet looked to IMAX. Yeah, honestly, it was stunning. The CG from the get-go, Baby Groot consistently working with them. The space battles are stunning. I mean, ILM, no one competes with them in CGI. Actually, Wheater's got good with motion capture. I'll give him that. But as an overall,
Weta work on this. I was watching the credits, and it mentioned Weta Digital. So I don't know if they worked with ILM on it.
Maybe, but I wouldn't be surprised, because especially motion capture stuff, Weta are pretty high up in the hierarchy for that. But then again, ILM did Jungle Book, so it's each to their own. But the CGI was stunning. The 3D, obviously the way that IMAX works now, for those that don't know, and don't know what aspect ratio is, the two black bars at the top of the screen like that. what happened to IMAX now is that scenes will come out over the aspect ratio. So Fantastic Beasts, there was a scene when they were lightning, it would pop up the black bars, and I noticed it quite a bit in this when there was fireworks and stuff. They'd go over the aspect ratios, which was kind of cool. Then obviously with full IMAX scenes, you get the whole where you get the whole thing to yourself. So it was stunning in IMAX. The 3D was one of the very few 3D films which I actually really enjoyed. Some really awesome stuff, especially with Yondu's Arrow. I thought was amazing in 3D. But this is going to be up for the CG Oscars, I can guarantee you. Might not win, but it's definitely getting nominated.
Is that going to be a Marvel film nominated for the Oscars?
There's been loads of them.
Is that going to be a Marvel film winning an Oscar?
No.
Is that going to be a
It's
DC
just great
film
that it gets
still winning the Oscar?
Which is winning the Oscar?
Suicide Squad. Oscar-winning Suicide Squad.
I mean, ILM, they're going to put their money into... If someone went up to ILM and goes, hey, mate, what film of yours would you rather win an Oscar for CG? Star Wars or Marvel? ILM, well, we were only created to make Star Wars, so obviously we're going to go with Star Wars. I don't know what's going to win the Oscar for CG next year. I really hope Planet of the Apes gets its win because to round off the trilogy. I know this is off the point, but the CG was just stunning in this.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. We're at a point now where CGI really tends to not wow us as much because we see it in everything, but there are moments in this movie like that where you do get that sense of awe, which is nice to still get that. Arguably one of the biggest areas of this review we need to talk about is the soundtrack and its placement in the movie.
I'm just going to give a very quick overview. The soundtrack was okay, but it wasn't as good as the first film.
I'll agree with that, and that's kind of my thoughts on the movie in general. So the soundtrack was perfect in
there
that
you go,
regard.
guys. So like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you.
We also will be talking about the score as well, but for this, we're talking about the main soundtrack. I still think it's a great soundtrack. Again, I don't think it's as good as one, but you got the likes of ELO on there. You've got some Fleetwood Mac. You've got Cats. I'm not saying it's the track list of the album. The album's already out. It's not a spoiler.
I know. Just for those that go in, I went in with a blind eye to the soundtrack, except the trailer songs and Hey Mr. Blue Sky, which I don't know Americans would know that song.
It's quite a famous song.
Yeah, but in England, we're all English.
Yeah.
I mean, I love 70s. I mean, this is 60s and 70s, isn't it? I don't think it quite gets into the 80s stuff, but it's fantastic music again. I will say, though, before George shows off the soundtrack in a minute, and this is where a lot of people are going to disagree with me on this, it felt like how much the music's used in this film. I think that the music in this film is used a lot more than the music was in the first movie. There are moments in this film where songs are used for entire action sequences. It felt like it was done more because it was done in the first movie and people expected it. We've had copycat movies. We talk Suicide Squad. Suicide Squad tried to do exactly what this movie did, even to the point where it re-edited its whole film to be more like this. To the point where it didn't feel as inspired or as, off the cuff as the first movie did with its music. It's still great music. Music itself is fantastic. I was talking more about its placement in the film and how overused it is. It felt like every single scene, every single action scene, we had a popular song. That's my opinion on it. I like the placement of the music more in the first movie, but if I'm going to just talk about the music in general, it's a fantastic soundtrack yet again.
Yeah.
That might be me nitpicking. I don't know.
I'm going to say that there was 3 or 4 that stood out for me. The rest kind of blended into the background, whilst in the first film, you could literally play almost any song on that soundtrack, and you would immediately go, that is that point of the film.
Yeah.
If you did that with this film, there was only maybe 2 songs, maybe 3 at max, that I could go, oh yeah, that's this point of the film. And that's probably the problem with this film. You can't link it as much with the soundtrack to the point of the film of which you could with the first film. And whether that's because the music wasn't as memorable or whether that was because the actual film and the plot of the film itself wasn't as memorable.
Yeah.
I was going to say, you stole half the words from my mouth. My mouth. It's very late.
It is.
There were probably, like you said, 3 or 4 scenes matched, which the songs. I mean, I've had this on not loop. I've had it on loop for a day, and there are, when I've been listening to it, some of the songs are like, oh yeah, was this in it? Like, obviously, the second viewing is going to help a lot. But whenever I listened to it, I was like, okay, opening scene, yes, I remember that. I remember your trailer songs. There are probably 4 scenes in which I can automatically right now put the song to the scene. And I felt from the first time I saw Guardians 1, I could do it for almost every single scene they did. And that, I understand that. I think Empire Magazine had the best description for the Guardians issue. They put that difficult second album. That was their title for the whole of Guardians of the Galaxy 2, which I guess is the perfect synonym for it, because this film's almost a musical just without original music. And I feel that, I mean, how James Gunn narrows some of the scenes are not Tarantino-wise, that he picks a song and writes a scene around it. So I definitely can't go into some of them right now, but there's a scene or two where they have dialogue from the song that's spoken by a character, and that's clearly intentionally done because it's been shot like that. But there are some when the songs just fade into background where I feel that because the first one, like we've said before, the first one was such a big risk, that film, the soundtrack, lightning doesn't strike twice, and I thought the soundtrack was very good. It's a great soundtrack, songs. In terms of fitting into the film, like I said, there's half as much compared to that first one, and I completely, that's the way music works though, doesn't it? That music industry, once you've cracked it, it's very hard to come out as well. And I think also the way I see this, because to me there's more of a story in this film than there was in the last one. I don't know if I'm on my own on that, but the music wasn't as important to this one because there's actually stuff happening on screen, whereas the first was such a generic action, like a generic superhero film, that the music helps.
Worked, and that's the problem.
But I think it worked in this, but it wouldn't work.
Though it was generic, and even like I can even now say, you name a song from that soundtrack and you play it to me, and I'll be able to tell you the scene. And with this,
but that was 3 years. You've had 3 years to know that, though. There's been 3 days.
I could do it maybe from the second viewing, maybe even the first with most of the songs. Like, really, it is a balance between whether the soundtrack has enough memorable songs in it, enough catchy songs in it, and whether the plot itself complements the songs, and whether the plot itself is good enough or memorable enough in some areas for the songs.
But I feel that it's hard to talk about now. I feel with this, especially the father angle of the story, it wouldn't work them chucking some music over the top.
No,
because whereas the first one, like I said, because it's so generic that a bad guy wants to destroy the universe, but they have to come together to save the day. There's your Marvel trope. Have we had a Marvel film which has entirely been about a son uniting with his father to the degree that Guardians 2 has? I understand that there was probably a focus more on writing the actual the script.
The first, I guess, the first Thor film got close.
Oh yeah, that's
it's more he got banished to Earth rather than being with his dad.
Iron Man 2 with Howard Stark.
Yeah.
Nah, not in the way. But then if you had generic pop music over the top, I know Iron Man 2 loads of AC/DC.
I know, but you stick Bowie over any Marvel film, and it'll make it better. So.
But that's the point with this. This wasn't about music. This is about the story. So, I mean, if you look at the way the songs are used, they're to suit the scenes in that first one. With Kurt Russell and Peter Quill in this, you chuck some music on, it's going to take you out of the scene, but you need to be in that scene to find out what's happening. So I would defend it on that point, that I'm saying the soundtrack's not as good, but for this film, they shouldn't be focusing on the soundtrack. They need to be focusing on the story, which I feel they did, but the soundtrack is still integral to it. But I don't feel they're ever going to touch that first soundtrack.
I mean, there were moments in this movie, even like the opening scene where, again, it's the opening scene, not really a spoiler, where they say that Star-Lord wanted to bring along a boombox just to play music for the opening scene. And that's where I felt like it felt more forced to get the music in there. That being said, I still love the soundtrack. We need to move on anyway. So I guess at this point, we've pretty much said everything we can for spoiler-free. So if we just go over overall opinions, and then we'll move into spoilers. I realise we've been talking for over an hour now, so we're going to have to go through spoilers pretty quickly, because I don't know about you guys, I'm getting kind of a bit
tired.
A bit tired with it, yeah. So overall opinions, George, what do you think of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2?
I feel that if you like I think you guys said, if you like the first, I mean, you both said you like this one. If you like the first, you'll like this. Go watch it. You're going to have a good time. It's going to be fun. If you've got kids, take your kids. I'm sure they're going to love it. Yeah, I say this to most films, but this is generally a very funny film. that works and is standalone-ish to other Marvel films. I think it's a bit fresh. I think that's the way I've called the Guardians films. They're fresh. They're not the same old, same old. And go and watch it. See what you think. That's the best way to say it.
Tayte?
I am going to say go watch this film because it's Marvel and we're all slaves to Marvel at this point. We'll have no other option as far as superhero films until DC pulls their finger out their arse and comes
Wonder
up with
Woman.
content.
Never going to happen.
Until that day, you're left with Marvel, and Marvel's doing okay stuff at the moment. I use the perfect description of it. It was acceptably okay. It was an acceptably okay film. It wasn't on the bad spectrum. There were some glaring flaws to this film, and yet at the same time, I enjoyed watching it. Now, what does that say about me? It says that I like Marvel and I like Guardians of the Galaxy as a franchise, and it's going to take a lot more to turn me away from it. I enjoyed the film watching it, but there is still a lot to improve on. So go watch the film.
Yeah. Oh, go on, sorry.
I said after all this, he still says he liked it.
Yeah. I'm kind of in this. I'm going to echo Tayte said with this. I feel really conflicted on this movie. I don't think it's as good as the first one. I think that the humor suffers in this movie. I don't think it's as sharp. I don't think it seems as naturalistic. It feels forced. There's a lot of jokes in the movie that do outstay their welcome by quite a bit. And I think there's even at least one joke in this movie that we've compared to the likes of the humor from the Scooby-Doo movies, which James Gunn wrote. For me, the team dynamic wasn't there in this one. That being said, it's still a movie you need to go and see it on the big screen. There is still a lot to like in this movie, and it does further on the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Maybe not to the extent that we expected, but it still does, and it's left us with a lot of neat information that we can expect to follow. The action's great, CGI is an absolute spectacle, and the soundtrack's fantastic as well. It did feel really long for me. 2 hours 20. I think they could have easily shaved off about 10-20 minutes of this movie, maybe got it to a tight 2-hour movie for the story it was trying to tell. I think that would have been perfect. I'm just sort of average on this one. There's a lot of themes in there that I like, but to me, like most Marvel movies, it's always surface level. It's always the safest bet to make an entertaining popcorn flick, when if they'd have delved into those themes, like, say, I know this is Sony, but like Spider-Man 2 did, or the X-Men films did before X-Men Apocalypse, I think we could have had something really special with this one that advanced the characters. And how it turns out, I don't think we quite got that. They almost hit it, but they don't delve into it as much as they could have. So that's kind of my overall opinion on the movie.
I've actually misquoted myself here. I didn't say it was acceptably okay.
Acceptable mess.
It was an acceptable mess.
Yeah.
And if I'm talking about it in that way, it's on the complete opposite end of the spectrum of Suicide Squad, which was an unacceptable mess.
Well, no, do not compare these two films, please. Save yourself.
I said it was on the opposite end of the spectrum, dude.
Yeah, but you don't talk about Suicide
Sorry.
Squad.
I won't
talk
about Oscar-winning Suicide Squad, which ended up being the deciding marker in me winning the Oscars points game.
Needed more honker.
You may have won the predictions game, but La La Land didn't win Best Picture.
But no one predicted that.
We're still not salty on this channel at all, are we?
I've already won the prediction game. I've come first and second. Tate's come first and last. So really, I'm top on aggregate.
Okay, right.
Last.
I'll accept it. That's fine. So that'll do it for our spoiler-free section of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Now, as this is a big movie, if you don't want to be spoiled with anything...
This might be the longest spoiler-free section we've ever done for a film.
It probably will be.
It might be. And we've still got a lot to go through in spoilers, so we'll try and get it through as quick as we can. If you haven't seen Guardians of the Galaxy 2, and obviously you want to see it, you don't want anything spoiled, click off this now, go see the movie in almost a week's time, come back to us and watch the rest of the review. So we're going to go through this movie pretty much beginning to end, hit all the themes and delve into things that we couldn't really talk about. So we'll kick off with the opening scene. Young Kurt Russell. Now, this isn't the first time that Marvel's done this. We've seen the likes with Michael Douglas's character in Ant-Man, and I think, didn't we see it with someone? We saw it with Robert Downey Jr. in Civil War as well.
Oh god, that horrible animation.
And I know, with the likes of Rogue One, a lot of people still criticize Peter Cushing and Carrie Fisher in that movie. Personally, I think it looks as good as that animation is going to at this point. I don't know if they brought in a lot of similar techniques for this. He looked like he'd walked right off a John Carpenter set from back in the 80s. It was incredible. And I think actually I was reading an article that they didn't use all too much CGI on him. He was there present on set, and they kind of just masked and smoothed over the wrinkles on his face. I don't know if that's all that was involved, like a little bit of makeup, a little bit of CGI touch-up. It looked amazing. And I guess, like, for an opening scene, if you didn't think that Kurt Russell was going to be the villain in this movie, this kind of spells it out immediately that he's the villain, in that he's planting these alien plants all over the world. To which I thought was going to be, and it kind of is, I guess, in a way, Poison Ivy's plan from Batman and Robin. A little bit.
She's not a living planet.
He's not a living planet. He does want to populate. Oh, I guess it's he wants to populate himself everywhere, doesn't it? There's a little bit. Okay, fair enough.
A little bit of innuendo going on there, and a lot of innuendos went through in this film, of which kids going to the cinema, even though Guardians of the Galaxy 1 had the whole... oh, sorry, I didn't know that did that. Kids will obviously still go see this film because it's got Baby Groot.
Mm-hmm.
So, Marvel, who are you pitching this film at?
What did you guys think of young Kurt Russell that you've been seeing?
Young Kurt Russell. I liked it. I mean, I like seeing the guy as the Blast in the past. I'm one of the only people that seems to like Jeff Bridges in Tron Legacy.
Oh no, I like Tron Legacy, dude.
That was the beginning of that era of the let's CGI them. Peter Cushing in Rogue One is stunning to this day. I couldn't give a damn about anyone that complains. They got permission off his estate to do it. So pipe down, please.
Do it.
It was nice to get the flashback seeing Peter Quill's mom, because there'll be people that go in and that don't know about the mom and dad stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought young Kurt Russell, I think what the key thing of these guys is the eyes on the CGI young people, and by having the proper shades on, being in the car, it made it a bit easier for them to do. But yeah, he looks exactly like he did in the 80s, and he looks scary like young Jeff Bridges.
He does a bit, yeah. He does a bit.
And given that he was this, guy that can do anything in the world, it's a bit like Jeff Bridges in Tron. Did he have a wise old man beard like Jeff Bridges in Tron?
Ooh.
Oh yeah, Jeff Bridges.
Didn't it involve like Jeff Bridges' son as well? Wasn't that the plot of Tron?
They reconnected after 30 years.
Hold on, quick question. Isn't Tron a Disney film?
It is.
Yeah. And then now want to relaunch and reboot with Jared Leto.
Oh.
Yeah. Hashtag honka honka.
But yeah, young Kurt Russell, I liked it.
Yeah. We move on to the opening credits scene, and I guess we could have probably guessed from the trailer that this might be the opening scene. We're thrown right into a cold open where an interdimensional alien squid, almost like Watchmen, is entering the atmosphere, trying to steal some batteries. The Guardians have been hired to stop it, and we get the awesome opening credits scene of Baby Groot dancing to
awesome.
ELO's Mr. Blue Sky.
Kidding me.
I loved it.
This is possibly
one of the greatest scenes in Marvel.
I did not like seriously. From that moment on, I knew that I wouldn't like Baby Groot throughout the entire film, and it damaged.
What's your
damaged
problem
me
with
in that
babies,
respect.
man?
He's just feeling the music, dude.
No, here's the thing. Everyone is more interested in the fight that's going on behind.
No, it's not.
That's the point.
That's what I wanted to see. This is Marvel coming up with an idea to put the credits on the screen, which is cool because they did that with the first film. But they had an entertaining scene, an introduction to the character in the first film. This is just, hey, look, it's this character. Woo, look at them dancing. No,
yeah, but
it's not needed. It really isn't.
It's an opening credits scene. If you did have this full action fight and you had directed by James Gunn, you had all these things coming up, you wouldn't focus on it. And we do get a fight with the squid right after.
I was going to say.
What I would have wanted to... I'm not going to lie. What I would have wanted to see would be maybe like a outshot, wide shot of the entire platform, them getting completely pummeled by this monster, and then having the credits rash up in the end, instead of having it focused purely on Groot, and then maybe having something coming into focus of like something being beaten up by the squid monster. No. What I wanted to see was a complete static wide shot of the platform, maybe in the distance where you can see them trying to fight it. That would have been more interesting, or at least better to see, than being distracted by, hey, look, marketing ploy is this character who's useless in this film, and
Groot saved the day. Don't forget that. Again.
I was not a fan.
Yes,
I
we know you don't like
loved it.
babies. I love the scene. I love the song. I'm happy the song was in this. I'm happy it was in the
Yeah, I'm
opening.
happy with the song choice, but not.
I loved it. What was wrong with Baby Groot dancing? They got little Easter eggs to the last one when Drax hits the floor and they do the whole standing still thing. Like I thought it was hilarious. It set the tone. And let's be honest, no one wants to see them fight like a giant squid for 6 minutes. Like they did it on purpose to then have the fight afterwards and show you what really happens. Which had some vintage Drax moments.
Yeah.
It was a very, very strong opening scene to bring you straight into it. So you're 5 minutes of setting up a villain coming in and just a 1 minute setup, Groot dancing. You're still seeing some bits like Gamora saying the best things Gamora did in the whole film was, "Oh, hey, Groot, watch out." Not a fan. But no, I thought it was a great opening scene. One of my favorite opening scenes I've seen in a very long time.
I say the first movie had the dance scene with Peter Quill, and
Yes, that introduced the character, and that kind of showed you what this character was about. We know
what Baby Groot's about. They destroy his music,
about.
and he gets an angry tantrum like a real baby.
This is the thing with sequels, though. You can repeat ideas, but you can't repeat exact things. We've already been introduced to the character of Star-Lord. You have the character arc in the first movie. You need to open with a cold opening like this did with an action scene. I understand the narrative placement to open with an action scene, which this movie did. And it's fun, and I always say this, it's nice to get opening credit scenes in films because it's very rare that you get that nowadays. So it was nice to have that. It eases you back into the world. I thought there was some funny visual gags where you're seeing the characters just getting flung around and pummeled by this squid in the background, and your focus is on Baby Groot. I liked it personally. That's just me. So after that, we go back to the gold people, or the sovereign was it the sovereign people?
The sovereign.
And they basically hand over Nebula, which was the prize for fulfilling their task to them.
I have a quick question. Are they the villains?
Yes.
They're secondary villains.
Are you sure?
They put the plan into action, so
the way I look at it is they wouldn't have attacked the Guardians of the Galaxy if Rocket hadn't stolen the light bulb things, and that storyline would have been completely closed. And from that point on, they're just trying to kind of get back at and kind of state down a message: look, you've stolen from us, and we kind of asked for your assistance. You've taken more from us than we offered you, and you basically broke our deal. Does that really make them the villains?
Yes,
or does that make the Guardians of the Galaxy kind of...
Nebula stole some batteries and was taken prisoner. Rocket stole some batteries and they tried to murder him and his entire crew of friends.
Well,
and then they hide the Ravishers to kill them, and then they're going at the end to kill them.
Problem is, though, they say that the batteries that they're looking after is crucial for their life form survival.
Yes, but the point of these gold people is that they're so up themselves, and so they're like, if you watch the Titanic, the upper class guys, this is what these people look like. You know, the whole point is we didn't they say we kill every single person that's not genetically correct to what they want to do? Like that's some Aryan race shit going on there. They're bad guys from the minute they're introduced, in the comments they make about the guys in the team. That's what Rocket's like, I'll steal from them because they're twats.
Yes, but I want to go ahead and say that a certain character who we can now talk about because it's spoiler section, Adam Warlock, is not a bad guy.
But we haven't met Adam Warlock yet. She merely creates him. He isn't one of them.
Tate, here's the thing.
Adam Warlock is not going to be gold either.
Yeah, I know that.
This is why I didn't have a problem with it, because that was such a Rocket Raccoon thing to do. He's always thinking about his own ends. He's always trying to think of how to make an extra buck. So stealing things like that is completely within his character. And the Guardians of the Galaxy themselves, although they do save the galaxy, they are technically anti-heroes. They're not inherently good people. They're called a bunch of a-holes in the first movie, and I think they repeat that fact in this movie. The problem I have with it is that I think as an opening, the whole gold people should have ended with Rocket Raccoon saying, hey, look, Drax, look what I stole from them. Walk out, boom, move on with the story. The fact that right after this, they realize that the batteries have been stolen, then we launch into a second action scene, which goes on for ages and ages and ages. And that's where it gets ridiculous with Drax like hanging out the back and smacking into things. That's where I really started to tune out of it, because we had this big action scene with the squid. Then you need to let the film ease down a bit and then introduce the story and then build up to whatever your next action scene is. To have two action scenes follow each one, it felt like overkill. And that's where I really started tuning out of the movie until they crash landed on the planet. They could have easily had the same effect. Something comes up, they crash the ship, there's a malfunction or something, they've been sabotaged, and they crash and we could have moved on. I did think
it could have maybe even been like they realize they've stolen the batteries, so they sabotage the ship, and that would paint them as proper villains. And also at the same time, it could still have the end credit sequence where they say they've stolen our batteries, we cannot reproduce in that way. And she says, okay, we've got this project which is going to be our new step in our evolution. I call him Adam, and that would have worked really well without having to reintroduce the Sovereign.
I think you're focusing on Adam Warlock far too much.
I'm focusing on Adam Warlock far too much because not only is he Thanos' greatest enemy, but he is possibly going to be the person who holds the final Infinity Stone, and that is the one thing that ties together.
It's probably
we haven't even seen him on screen yet.
And the other thing of Adam Warlock,
Guardians of
the Galaxy 1, there's a cocoon in the Collector's house thing. At the end of Guardians of the Galaxy 2, the cocoon is hatched. That was originally Adam Warlock. Now there's another Adam Warlock origin. There might be a third Adam Warlock. Adam Warlock's an afterthought that he is important, but we don't know how Marvel's... he will be important, but he's...
Cast in the first part of Infinity War, there's rumours going around that his sidekick, was it Pip the Troll?
Yeah,
has been...
Dinklage.
We can't focus on Adam Warlock. Anyway, at the end of the day, Adam Warlock's important. The main three guys of the comics for Infinity War is... in the comics, it's Doctor Strange.
It's Captain Marvel.
Not in the original. She's not. She's not important at all. Doctor Strange, Mistress Death, who they're probably not going to do in the films.
No.
And Adam Warlock. They haven't had enough time to introduce Adam Warlock. We know that that's going to be Tony Stark's role. Tony Stark's going to be the one that does this. Adam Warlock's an interesting thing, but it shouldn't. He has to be set up in. I mean, the next cosmic film. Yes, there's Thor in the end of the year. Then it's Civil War not Infinity War next year. Like that's two films.
So are you willing to say that the Sovereign might show up in?
They might show up in a scene, but Adam Warlock's not going to get this big origin. He's not going to be leading the hunt against Thanos or anything like that.
No, because he hasn't been cast in the first Infinity War film. So I think he's going to come in bigger in Captain Marvel because they're going to obviously want Captain Marvel. Seeing as she is one of the most powerful things.
Maybe.
In the Marvel
Should we
universe.
save the speculation for the post-credit scene? Because
Yeah.
I mean, we've got the post-credit scene there with Adam Warlock.
Yeah, I was
Just
going to
the
say
fact
it's
I just want to say that the fact that
the
we're
gold
talking about
people.
credits more than
The gold people are there as the villains, not to tease Adam Warlock mainly. That would have been an afterthought.
Really, you kind of have three villains going through this movie. You've got Ego, you've got the Ravagers, and you've got the Gold People. So there's kind of three factions in this movie. One thing I will say as well, which kind of confused me. So we see the sovereign state people in these kind of arcade machine spaceships, and they control them remotely from their home world and fly them out in space. Now, when all these ships are getting destroyed, they say something like they're wasting all our resources. And I'm there like, well, can't you just like put another coin in the slot machine and like boot the machine up again and like fly out? You've got an infinite amount of spaceships here.
Yeah.
I didn't really get that because no one's technically dying. These are just screens that it's almost like a video game, and then you die, game over. Boot it back up and send them out.
They've got to build the remote control ships though. It's like drone strikes and predator strikes.
Oh, okay.
I thought that was a kind of not cool twist, but when they killed one, like, no, they're remote control. Oh, for fuck's, that's a bit boring. But then when it cut to the arcade, like. That was pretty unique. Like I know it's an arcadey thing, but
it's
never
quite
really
an
seen it
interesting
before.
idea,
Yeah, it's quite a cool concept actually for a sci-fi. And I love the whole piss take stuff when it's got to that last guy and you think he's going to be the guy that does them and he dies and they're like, you suck.
Yeah, I'm like, how does he suck? He got the furthest out of anyone. Like everyone else was out there straight away.
I liked
high score.
I liked the gold people sort of tronny things, I guess you could call them.
Yeah.
The light cycles. But the gold people, they were. I mean, there's the sovereign. I was just a bit bored by them across the film. They didn't need to come in that final third at all. I think they just fell into the trap that the first one did. The biggest criticism of the first one was the space battle at the end, but like 1 million ships got involved. It didn't need to happen, and then it happened in this one again. I know this is jumping right at the end, and that really, for me, that was the worst bit. It's something and this is completely off the point. We'll get to it, but I liked the whole brain thing that they had to get to the brain and do that. That was kind of cool because how else can you destroy a living planet? But the whole let's have another space battle. The entirety of Phase 2, I've said before, is like it ended with an irrelevant battle in space that really just got bored of it. and I don't want this to keep happening with Marvel. Less is more. Why do they have to put another 300 spaceships at the final? Just have a brain thing. Have them having to do some stuff like that. But we'll get to that later.
Yeah, it was just too much stuff going on in that scene. Then we get to essentially like the Blade Runner homeworld or Fifth Element world, I guess, where we're introduced to Yondu, who is posted up in an alien brothel. I thought that was really cool that they give his character that intro because that's exactly like what the character would be.
Yeah.
And then we get introduced to an actor who I'd completely forgot was in this movie and almost leapt out of my seat in joy when I saw him. Sylvester Stallone is in this movie, and he's great. And as soon as he showed up and he walked off the camera, I was kind of like reaching at the camera like, no, come back. I want this film to be about you. He's almost playing like his character from Judge Dredd in that he is kind of like a space cop and he is the law.
I am the law.
I was waiting for it. Like, if this is the movie to do it in.
Well, he's a Ravager, isn't he? He's one of like the head of the Ravagers, which is Yondu's kind of guy. And it doesn't really say how he exiles him. It just randomly happens there, and they're like, you ain't part of us anymore.
Well, I got the impression that he'd already been exiled long before because he talks about the history he had. He said that this is going to sound really dodgy for the character of Yondu, but he was like dealing with kids or something.
Yeah. That ties into ego.
It was to do with Quill, I believe.
Yeah.
I believe that he took on Quill, and that wasn't part of the code because you meant to basically pillage as a Ravenger.
So they kicked him out of the group. Yeah.
Yeah.
You are kind of thrown all this information in one, and I think if they'd have been smarter, they should have set the seeds of this in the first movie. But just seeing Stallone again, he's awesome, and I think George, you said like the guy doesn't age. Like he's in phenomenal shape for his age. It's ridiculous.
I think what I said is when you look at him in Expendables, he's roided up, and it's modern day. He's doing all the other old guys, and it's just not tragic, but seeing him in this like. In space with a good budget behind him, these amazing like extras, aliens. It was really cool to see him do something that wasn't boxing or like some old people stuff. And like I wouldn't say it was like a scene stealer, but it was like fucking hell, Sylvester Stallone's in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Like that was awesome. And obviously,
I love a spin-off. I really want to at this stage.
I think the Guardians of the Galaxy spin-off.
I think the plans are for them to be in the third one, and maybe something could happen off there. I would love to say TV, but I don't know at this point. I mean, the friend I was with, he said straight away, like, is this just an Easter egg for Tango and Cash? But I don't know. It was something unique, and it didn't take me out of it. Like, yes, I saw it as Sylvester Stallone, like I see everyone as Samuel L. Jackson when he plays someone, but it didn't focus on him. He wasn't. That could have been anyone that took that role, but I like the fact it was Sylvester Stallone.
Yeah, no, that was cool. Tayte, do you have anything to say on Stallone, or shall we get through this? Because we've got quite a lot to talk about.
I like the Easter egg at the end being the original Guardians of the Galaxy. Other than that, Stallone, I guess he played a character who was authoritative, who you could see was a leader, but also cared about him. And even when you get to the very end of the film, he says he didn't get it, he didn't understand. Like it shows that he does care, and he's a character who they can actually expand with in Marvel. I'm expecting to see him getting killed off in some fashion, along with the. I am, purely because he is one of those kind of characters who sits on the sideline, and maybe if he goes and gets himself involved to sacrifice himself for the actual Guardians of the Galaxy, then maybe it'll give him worth as a Ravager. That's just me pitching. Go ahead, Marvel, use it.
I mean, I didn't know anything about the character, so
he's called Starhawk. As a member of the original team, he's called Starhawk. He can obviously he's like a hawk. But he was the head of the original Guardians. For this, he's the head of the Ravagers. So I'm guessing the original Guardians are basically the creators of the Ravagers. Really cool to see what they do with them in the third film. And I think I read somewhere that they're looking at bringing it back to the third one. That could be anything from a 1-minute scene to teasing something in the future. But bring it on.
But the fact that it was called Starhawk as well. This is what I Wikipedia did all this stuff afterwards because I watched all the post-credit scenes. I was like, that means something to someone. Yeah, I'm going to have to Google that immediately. But Stallone did a movie.
I don't know. For my limited Marvel knowledge, my immediate thought went Inhumans because I knew that they kind of were a thing and now is no longer a thing as far as the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But then my immediate attention went to, I wonder if it has something just directly to do with the Guardians of the Galaxy, whether it's like a team or like a villain team. and then it was the original. I was like, oh, okay.
But Stallone did a movie called Nighthawks, and I kept getting mistaken with Starhawk and Nighthawk. Like, I know that wouldn't have any reason why he was cast, but it's nice to say officially now that Stallone is part of the MCU.
Marvel Cinematic
Thought way
Universe.
too long on Sylvester Stallone. He's only like a really, really minor role in this film. So we'll scoot through it a bit more now. So they crash land. The Guardians crash land on the planet, and we're introduced to Kurt Russell's character for the first time, and I'm kind of a little bit bummed out that they introduced his character in the trailer. I think that would have been a great reveal for it if they'd have left that in the film, but we did already see that
from the trailer. All the way up until that Kurt Russell trailer, part of the trailer, it was just like, okay, the gold people are the villains throughout the entire film. I thought they were going to go with the whole cleanse the galaxy plot, and it's, we've got to save the galaxy for a second time, because these guys are going to do mass cleansing or something like that. But in the end, it was just like, okay.
It was just the marketing for those that don't know that he was the villain to build up the other villains, and he was the good guy that's come and saved them. A classic trope, which I think did work for this. I think the trailer, because everyone knew Kurt Russell was in the film. I thought that I'm Your Dad. I thought that worked because the film raises the point of questions: is he really his father? You know, that sort of stuff. But this is, in terms of audience stuff, like this is going to get a lot of 80s people to watch it. We said that Kurt Russell's in the film, like, not like Fast 8 benefit from it because it's already made its money, but in an integral role, like Hateful Eight was all about Kurt Russell sort of coming back and stuff, and seeing him in a major sci-fi blockbuster film was like, that is really cool, and that is a nice throwback, and people are going to discover him. But I'd imagine people that grew up in the 80s with those 80s films would be like, oh my God, Kurt Russell's in this film, like I'm going to go watch it. Because he's got that fan base.
That's exactly. I mean, I would have seen the movie anyway, but that definitely helped sway me to see the movie. So, also around this time, while the main crew is on the planet Ego and exploring that, which we've said looks great, and even there's some dialogue between Star-Lord where Kurt Russell's sort of explaining the origins of the planet and what he is a Celestial. So is Star-Lord. It really reminded me of Man of Steel, where Superman goes to the Fortress of Solitude. This whole exposition-filled thing between father and son, and you've got the CGI, like not vistas, but CGI items. The USB stick and the whole pin machine-looking thing floating around the room. It reminded me of that, but done right with a lot more character and focus than in Man of Steel. Whilst on the flip side, you've got Rocket Raccoon who's staying behind to fix the ship with Nebula, and is attacked by the Ravagers. That's quite a fun scene where he's taking all these Ravagers out with traps. I thought that was cool to see that, and shows how intuitive Rocket is as a character. And then we get introduced to Yondu again. Now, do you guys want to talk about like the whole... We may as well just focus on one plot line beginning to end. So Yondu and Rocket.
Yondu and Rocket are basically the same person. As far as Yondu is concerned, he sees Rocket to be this person who is teased, rejected, and just kind of underwhelmed in every way, shape, or form, and he's got to prove himself in the world, and because of that, he goes around insulting people because it doesn't mean he has to face his own insecurities. It basically sums up both characters, and I feel like at the end of the film, it could have gone either way. It could have been Rocket sacrificing himself, or it could have been Yondu sacrificing himself, and I don't know which one would have benefited more, but we only get to see one result from that.
They're never going to kill a raccoon in a kid's film. Yondu is interesting because they
Watership Down.
Trying to in the first film, there's not much character development at all with him. He's a guy that had some cool moments, but nothing major except the fact that he does like Peter Quill. He does see him as a sort of son figure. He didn't give him to his dad. And the Rocket stuff in this, when they introduce him again, we get our first look at pre-named Taserface, where this is what we're going to do with him. He's worth this, and he's like, we're not going to hand him over, blah, blah, blah. There's a bit of a mutiny, but the Rocket and the Yondu stuff kind of come out of nowhere because no one knows anything about his past. You just think, oh, this guy's a Ravager, but I know this jumps right in, but the scene of him and Rocket where Yondu just kind of raises hell, like shouting at him, you are me, say you are me, son, or something like that to him. Yeah. And it was.
You said you don't know me, and I said you are. I am. I do know because you are me.
It was a very powerful scene, but I loved the dynamic of the build-up of baby Groot being like bullied into letting Nebula go free because at the end of the day he's a baby that was a bit scared. He wanted to save his friends. I liked sort of how do I describe it without getting into too much? But the fight scene of Rocket was great, but I liked the dynamic that Yondu was still kind of on their team, and it was really cool to see immunity because at the end of the day, these guys are pirates. In the first film, we just see them as a bunch of idiots. But in this film, we've really got like a look into like some of these guys being nutcases, and I really like that aspect of it because at the end of the day, this is what they should be like going all the Ravagers being that prostitute bar. That's the sort of thing that they would be like pirates. And this did it, and I liked the mutiny and what sort of came from the Rocket and Yondu angle together. That was my favorite relationship in the film.
And for me, the best parts with Rocket Raccoon himself are always the parts where he does show that vulnerability. So my favorite parts in the first movie were where he's drunk at the bar and he talks about his origin, how he was horribly mutated by scientists, and he's still clearly got some kind of PTSD from that. And also at the end when Groot died, that was a very nice, touching moment because that was a believable friendship. In this one, this was the one key scene with Rocket. I will say as well for Yondu, if you look at the character's original design from the comic books, I was really let down by how they created his character in the first Guardians of the Galaxy, mostly down to the fin on his head, which was this really flattened one that they have in the movie. When that got shot off, I thought he was just going to be like that for the movie. When he asked for a replacement one, which is like classic comic book Yondu with the huge fuck off like shark fin on his head, I loved it, and I was like, this is amazing. We've finally got the Yondu we wanted, the Yondu we deserved, not the one that we needed. And then we get to the ending. I know I'm jumping ahead. We'll come back to some of the other story points, but I didn't expect them to kill off Yondu. I didn't expect them to kill off anyone, in all honesty. I thought that Ego, the Living Planet, would clearly get taken out because Marvel tend to kill off their villains, apart from Loki, in every single one of their movies. But it felt deserved. It felt like someone needed to go in this one. I think we talked about in Civil War how we felt someone should have gone in that one. And it's skirted around it, but I'm glad that this movie wasn't
in this film. It was Peter losing both of his father figures. And I feel like that works better than possibly Rocket dying and him losing a close friend and his dad.
It was the realization that Yondu was his father. When you get the whole looking back for his life thing, there was a quick shot of young Peter with Yondu training and stuff. The Yondu angle, it was, it's like, I am your daddy, and. It's so weird jumping in because the whole build-up of Yondu throughout this film was stunning. I loved, in terms of action, my favorite action scene in the film is the prison breakout scene. This is one of the scenes of the music is absolutely phenomenal. This is when it was. We knew the scene's coming, but not to the degree of it because we know there's a shot of people falling in slow-mo. You thought some kind of Rocket Raccoon sort of trick. Obviously, there's Baby Groot getting the guy that's run away, but the build-up to that it was pretty brutal seeing every single guy being put out an airlock. But it's in the average film, a guy gets chucked out of airlock and they just fly 1,000 yards and you never see them again.
It's like the camera lingers on it, doesn't it?
Yeah, it was brutal. It was about 15 seconds and then it pans and there's all the other dead bodies and the build-up's there for Yondu's not redemption, but everything's been taken from him. He's like a man possessed. Taserface. To me, the funniest moment in the film is the Rocket Raccoon and Taserface scenes.
Overused joke.
I don't know. I think the Taserface stuff was perfect. And we knew the gold person, we knew she'd take the piss, but I just thought it worked. He was about to die and they were laughing at him. The Taser.
Can we talk about the fact that he survives a wall of flame?
Yeah,
Taserface.
Yeah, maybe it's because he's been burnt before, so he's just used to it. But he takes an explosion, and then he's a bit, crispy and smoke coming off him, and it's.
He's a monster, though.
I guess so. I kind of agree with Tate that I do think the joke was overused a little bit. It was funny in small doses. I liked the what was it Aisha did we say where she did kind of fight back a laugh. That was funny because that was short. That was like a short, punchy little punchline to a joke.
The way my screen works, this is when Rocket's first making the jokes. I wasn't laughing out loud. I was smiling, I was proper smiling. And then he makes the one when I was about to laugh, but no one else was laughing. But then in the film, the Ravagers aren't laughing, but they want to. And then when that final joke comes, I fucking piss in myself. And then obviously all the Ravagers, but the whole IMAX did. And it was really surreal because it was everyone matched what happened on screen. And I felt like everyone was trying to hold in their laugh for it. But moments like that, now I know it's coming. That's why tomorrow's viewing is going to become so much more important. But the Yondu story of redeeming the redemption of Sean. I don't know the side sort of Ravager's name, but it's James Gunn's brother, Sean Gunn. I liked that he goes back to the good side, but that breakout scene with the arrow is when he gets the prototype, the build up to the Mohawk, the new fin, and it's just I love the whistle in the first one, but he just kills everyone. I mean, they're showing it like he's going like straight through the stomach, he's like annihilating them, and then you've got the little bits of Rocket where they're having the time of their life, killing everyone together, and Baby Groot getting his revenge on that one guy that's bullying him. What I said earlier about Groot, I was quite upset when he was getting like kicked around and stamped on, and they were pouring drinks on him. Yeah. That was really painful to watch, and it's because he was Baby. It was cute. He worked for the story of when they were chanting mascot at him, and that's why I loved that bit where he does get his revenge. Like I know that was in the trailer, and I know that was coming, but it's just when he sees him and he just charges away, and he obviously trucks off the building, and you hear like him smack into like a metal dent on the floor. Mm-hmm. That prison breakout scene, I mean, there's been 2 phenomenal ones, and I can't really compare it to the other one from this year. But it was
that one was better. That one was better.
Yeah, to me, this was the best action scene of Guardians of the Galaxy 2. I thought.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
We'll talk about the funeral scene as well. When I was talking about the tone-deaf nature of the movie, there are moments in this film where it should have took its time and should have just solely focused on the emotion of the scene, and I felt they needed to do that for Yondu's funeral. They had that great bit before where Star-Lord was saying, like, no, and he was trying to, get the suit onto him or do something, get help for him, and he froze in space. Then we follow straight up with the funeral scene, and they needed to hit that emotion there, and that's where they started throwing the funny jokes in there. And Ant-Man did the same in the scene where Evangeline Lilly and Michael Douglas are reconcile. That was a nice character moment that they should have let play out as it was, because you can have a comedy and have serious scenes in there. So when you've got Star-Lord talking about, because there's this whole running thing with what's his name, David Hasselhoff. And when he starts bringing that into the speech, I know it's meant to be endearing, but it is technically trying to get a laugh out of the audience, and I felt that was out of place in that scene. But George, you were saying like you didn't think that Yondu, might be a possibility of Yondu coming back until they put the body into.
Oh, have I lost Chris?
We lost Chris for a very brief moment. But that's
are we good?
Yeah. So what happened was, like every Marvel film, you don't expect anyone to die. You know that the guys are going to make it. And I'm convinced, I read, this is months and months ago, Michael Rooker said he was going to be in the Avengers films because he was now a Guardian or something like that. I never looked into the article. I don't like click on stuff like that, so I don't actually know what was said. But I interpreted it as that, okay, Yondu's going to survive because it's a Marvel film. Mm. And then when he was dying in space, I was like, oh, come on, like, Gamora froze in the last film and made it. Like, who's gonna like come and save him? And then no one saved him, and then he was dead. I was like, oh well, they're just gonna get the Resurrection Stone from the Infinity Stones and bring him back in the Avengers, because somewhere I'm convinced that I think he's coming back, but I'm starting to question it. Mm. And then they put him through the engine crematorium and turned him into confetti, and I was there like, he's not coming back, is he? No, he's not coming back. And that was when it hit me, because is he a major character? Well, to me, he's part of Guardians now, but of everyone to have ever died in a Marvel film, why did it have to be him? Like, you can have a list of everyone else that should have died, but you know what? The reason he got the story, the push, was for that moment, for the father story, even the passing of obviously his mom left in Volume 2. I said to my mate, like, before I clocked on he was going to be a villain again, I wonder if Kurt Russell's got a Volume 3 just for randomness sake. But then no, Yondu had I've forgotten the name of it, the classic failed Windows version of the iPod.
Or Muse. Was it the
Muse? Yeah, it was Zune.
Z-U-N-E.
And that was Yondu's present to him, but in terms of not a sacrifice, but a sacrifice to the story, the character development, everything, it was perfect, I thought, that Yondu subplot. And I'm actually devastated to see him go. I really liked him in the first one. I was happy when they said there'd be more of him in the second one. I was loving him in this. And, it was a very sad moment, but it was one of the strongest moments for sure.
Really nice placement of the song Father and Son as well by Cat Stevens, which is a lovely song. And I thought that worked really effectively in that scene. Go on, Tate.
I was going to say, when Peter gets to Earth and discovers Spotify, it's going to blow his mind.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of other things to talk about because I know we're all running on fumes here, guys. We need to get through it quick. I don't think we need to talk about Nebula and Gamora. We've kind of already touched on that, and it's a very set plot. And she does get a redemption at the end. But they hug, they embrace themselves as sisters, and then Nebula leaves to go on her own mission, do what she's going to do.
I would say very quickly, I liked the Nebula backstory that every time he beat me in a fight, a part was taken out of me and made me more robotical. Like I said, it's all about character development sequels, and that one scene was probably the best scene Nebula will ever get in an MCU film, whether they do something interesting in Infinity War. But now we know she's not just some bore. I mean, she kind of still is, but we get the reasoning now of why she had to defeat her. I didn't like their little weird fight thing. Didn't like that at all. But I liked that whole, I'm like this because you always had to win. Because you had to win, I became this robot monster. I liked that. And that one scene was what they needed to do to make a credible character.
Yeah, I'll agree. I liked the character arc at the end for her, and I do hope she comes back because I'm interested to see. Now she's at this point where her character's going to go. The last big thing we need to talk about other than post-credit scenes is sort of the final payoff between Star-Lord and Ego the Living Planet, which is the big action climax of this movie.
Can I very quickly just go ahead and say I hated this action scene for more than one reason, and this is probably if not the opening sequence, this is going to be one thing that drags the film down for me and makes me not want to see it again, because I don't want to be reminded of Pixels again by seeing a Pac-Man flowing across the screen eating,
which was set up.
Yeah, they had a Pac-Man joke before,
and Skeletor, kind of.
Yeah. Okay. The other thing I wanted to talk about was the fact that the fight, it felt wrong. It's one of those things where you give Peter these superpowers because he is part of Ego Living Planet, but as soon as Ego dies, he doesn't have those superpowers anymore, even though his genes are still in him.
He might have them. We haven't tested them yet.
No, but that's what was explained to us during the film. He said once this planet goes, you won't be able to do anything like this again.
I guess it's because it's tied to the life essence of Ego. So if you take out the life essence of Ego, that's it. It's gone. What it reminded me of is that we talked about this. I think it was in the action scenes, Battle of the Brackets, with Al's pick of Van Helsing, which is a movie I like, which is a fight I like. But I can't remember who said it. It's two CGI things hitting each other.
This is my criticism of Guardians 2 was that fight at the end. I really liked you called it earlier, you said the monologues from Christ, I've forgotten his name again. I'm so fucking tired. Ego's monologues. I'm just going to say that. Kurt Russell's
like Watchmen or
Kurt Russell's monologues. I loved it. We knew the villain turn was coming because in today he is a villain, and then he hit the line and that's why I gave your mom the tumor, and saw next to me, like, oh shit,
that was just an ugly line to say, and it was unneeded.
I don't know because we know his mom died of cancer, and
yeah, I know, but
he
could have just said.
How generic is it to say I killed your mother?
Yeah, but he did that, and that's the problem.
But by saying that,
easily just said.
But we know she died of cancer in the first film.
No, but here's the thing: he could have very easily have just kind of mentioned it without saying it, and Peter having to put the pieces together and ask him the question, "Did you kill my mother?" And he'd go, "I had to." Or something like that.
Would have been no. The problem with that though, that's stupid because we know she died of cancer. That's the first scene in the first film. If he says he's killed her, then people go, "Well, no, he didn't. She died of cancer." So he has to say, "I planted the tumor in her." And I like that whole. I didn't know. It's not like it's an awkward thing to say, but as a villainess thing, if he just says he killed her, oh wow, a man killed someone. Oh, it's no different to when XY killed XY's mom, and Z killed A's mom. It's boring. But I planted a tumor that makes it so much darker immediately, and I thought that was really the heel turn. That was a sinister moment, and I can't say I liked it because it's about cancer, but that was a moment. It was okay, this villain, he's a villain. He ain't messing about.
The line felt out of place though. There was
I don't think so.
Subtler and easier ways of saying that same line, even suggesting it. The power of suggestion in films is phenomenal. And this is one of those.
But you can't suggest.
He could have said he could have said something like, "I did what I had to do to get you here, or to bring you here."
Yeah,
but it's not clear enough. It's not clear enough because mom.
No, but then Peter can question it, and that's where he starts to doubt Ego, because at that point it was all on board or none at all, and it went from all on board with zero doubt, I completely trust you, to I completely don't trust you and want to kill you within the space of 2 seconds. Now, what you want to see is you want to see a slow gradual decline and then just a drop off the cliff first. It was no suggestion before that point.
But we had the decline off everyone else.
Problem is, though, if he hadn't said that line, I'm 100% sure that Peter would have gone through with that.
But that's the point.
No, it isn't.
Because Ego thought had him under a spell.
So out of place and so forced to
then
move.
We knew something was going on. All the dead skeletons. We knew something was happening. We knew it was messy. We knew he was a villain at this point. But what was going to be the moment that snaps Peter out of it? And it was the mum. Because at the end of the day, Peter won't go back to Earth because his mum died there. He says that, and that is the main reason. He kept saying, why did you leave her? And he wouldn't really say anything. And he says, I only met her 3 times, and obviously he's planted the tumor at the end of it. But no, I thought that worked because it was a pretty gnarly villain thing to say. And Marvel hasn't done that, and you can't really get away with saying that sort of thing in film. But given his whole background of, I was like, I'm millions of years old. I learned like your organs. Like I did all that sort of biology shit that you do at school. I learned everything about it to make myself into your human form. And that's the way. Like, okay, maybe he did plant a tumor in her then because he would have known how, because he's that almighty powerful person. I thought that worked. The build up to his villain stuff was really cool, but like I said, I didn't like the end climax battle.
So hold on, another question on that. His whole plan was, I'm gonna make myself look like a human, then mate with everything that isn't human, and then be surprised when the one that works is the one that's actually human.
Well, he could have worked with anyone.
I interpreted it as that he probably went into the organism of every other alien, but they're not going to show that on camera.
Yeah.
That's the way I saw it.
He could have replicated the DNA perfectly because he's basically
everything.
God. Yeah, he is everything. I'll agree with Tayte in that I think they could have handled the line a bit more subtle, because it did feel just like a mic drop. Like he'd finished monologue and then, oh, by the way, I put a tumor in your mum. Boom, like that. It did feel kind of like that, how they handled it. I think they could have been.
And I slept with her.
Boom, 2 mics. But I like that about the character, because you could read into it. I'm going to say, like, Ego the Living Planet as a character is probably one of the most diabolical villains in the MCU we've had so far. I know you can look at
can we straight up say, because Thanos has done nothing so far, really. Let's be honest. Behind Loki, there hasn't been any.
I really liked Baron Zemo. I think I'm on my
I think Baron
like
Zemo was very good. I like Baron Zemo, and I think the Winter Soldier, I mean, you could technically count him as a villain for one film.
Yeah.
But other than that, you out of all of the Marvel films, you don't have anything that really stands out.
But he stands out.
Okay, how about this? Take like Suicide Squad and Batman vs Superman and Man of Steel for what they are. We still talk about the villains. We barely talk about some of the earlier on Marvel villains, such as whoever the hell was the villain in
DC
Iron
keep
Man
repeating
1, or whatever the name of it was, Iron Man 3.
It's also the history of DC Comics. DC Comics had better heroes. DC Comics had better villains than they have heroes, whereas Marvel Comics has better heroes than villains. The only decent Marvel villains in
Spider-Man.
Spider-Man's got all the that's what I was gonna say. Spider-Man has all the good Marvel villains. Like if you look at Avenger ones, then they had to make Loki in Avengers. It's Ultron. They ruined
the Mandarin. The Mandarin is a very good villain, and they waste him on Iron Man.
I loved him though. I thought he worked.
That's a really just split decision, isn't it? I would have liked to have seen actual Mandarin personally, but
same.
They hinted he's alive, but they won't do anything with it. But the thing is that works with this. Why does this villain work? He's not a generic hero that wants. Well, he does want to destroy the universe, but he's his dad, and his villainous aspect is connected because of his connection to Peter. Not that he's a random guy covered in makeup that wants to destroy the world. Not that he's a CGI thing that's meant to be Tony Stark that wants to destroy the world. It's literally, this is why I want to destroy the world, but because I'm connected to you, you have to invest into the storyline and the build up to it, rather than be shown as the villain from the get go, like the God People.
Yeah, what I like about his character as well is, I'm going to get through this really quickly. You could look at some of the other MCU villains like Kingpin or Cottonmouth from Daredevil or Luke Cage, and I know they're part of the TV universe, but they're a very different kind of evil. They're real world evil. If we're looking at just the films, it's the fact that he is so regimented in his ideology of what he wants to carry out. He truly believes that this is the right thing to do. He's thinking about legacy. And also with the whole tumor thing in the mum, you could say that, he did it to try as a way to get Star-Lord to come to him and eventually meet him. You could also look at the fact, if you do want to bring a bit of sympathy to the character, if you want to make it ambiguous, that if you do take his word that he did genuinely love her, maybe he felt that was the way, like, to kill her was the way to distance himself emotionally from becoming ultimately what Star-Lord chooses to become at the end, human, and choose family and a life like that. To distance yourself that and remove that.
One of the lines that he did say was, "If I'd have visited her one more time, I would have stayed."
Exactly. And I think that, ultimately killing her that way is his way of totally getting that out of his mind. So you could look at that bit of sympathy with the character there, or, just completely against him for doing that.
I thought he said that stuff to convert Peter, because he said that before he said, "Oh yeah, I had tons of other misses."
But that's what I like. It's ambiguous. Yeah. You could look at it that way.
He's an interesting villain, yeah. And that's why he worked, because he's integral to the story. Like, there's no connection except Drax, but that's more Drax's side, to the villain from the first film. It's like, it's just that the Marvel don't know how to do villains, and I felt they had one. And the fact that the villain is a planet and they pulled it off. Like, I don't know much about his history, but what was cool was seeing, I know what his comic book looks like of him as the planet form, and you got like that one shot of it, which I did really like as a cool little thing.
So at the end of this film, we now have the new Guardians of the Galaxy, including brand new Yondu in the shape of Sean Gunn, who played one of the Ravengers who was part of the original Yondu's crew.
The only survivor.
Sequence.
Yeah.
They have him practicing with the wand and almost killing Drax.
I really hope he doesn't become the new Yondu. Like, I hope that was just a fun little joke.
No, I think it's a joke.
He'll have a role in the next one. I do think he'll still have a role.
I'm going to say Mantis is now also part of the...
Yeah. Mantis and Nebula are the two big additions. Nebula's not there, but she will be. I literally think Sean Gunn's character, that he'll be in the next film, but he'll be with the Ravagers when they're there. But he might head on a small crew, but he's not a major character at all. He won't be in any position Yondu was.
Do you think he'll join the original Guardians of the Galaxy cast?
I think he'd be in the scenes with them. That's the right description, I think. I think he'll be head of a Ravagers pack, but I don't think the Ravagers will be featured much in the next one.
Mm-hmm. We have Stallone. We've already mentioned that as the original Guardians of the Galaxy. You've got Michelle Yeoh there. You've got Ving Rhames. And I think, George, you said the voice of Miley Cyrus as the robot. It's going to be interesting to see what they do with those characters, whether they are gearing up for a spin-off, whether they are just going to be in Guardians 3, or if they are going to amalgamate into Infinity War. I do not envy the directors of Infinity War at all, because this is just a ridiculous amount of characters they're going to have to juggle, and I hope they pull it off when they get to Infinity War. It's probably
the film's going to be about 3 hours long. The film's going to have to be 3 hours.
I won't mind that. They've built up to it.
Yeah,
it's bigger than the Avengers.
What else do we have? We have Adam Warlock, which we've talked about. Again, I didn't know who this character was. I've heard of the character once I Wikipedia'd it, but once I saw the film and saw the gold thing, I was like, it's kind of like the Thanos thing. I didn't know who Thanos was when I went to see Avengers 1. I was like, that means something to someone. It's interesting. It's going to be interesting to see how they do it in Infinity War. If they're going to create him as, maybe Thanos will create him as a sidekick or something like that, or he'll work for Thanos and eventually switch, but maybe that's too much like the character of
I think what's going to happen is, if Adam has the last, because
I think Heimdall has it. It's going to be introduced.
We're saying that, well, if Heimdall has it, then that's the thing that's kind of been in front of them this whole time. Does that mean that there's been 2 Infinity Stones connected?
There's one left to show, and it's the I don't know. It's something about not a Vision Stone, but a lot of the people were connecting. Heimdall can see. Heimdall can see like everything, and in the trailer he's got dreads and he doesn't have the bright yellow eyes. He's in the Thor flashback where he says he's blind in Thor's flashback in Age of Ultron.
And he ain't got his eyesight. He says something.
His eyes, yeah. And there's a lot of people that think it's Heimdall, which I think it could be.
But if it is Adam, then it would make him become the
final piece.
Not only the final piece, but it'll make him become the hero to fight against Thanos, because obviously if he goes and kills off the Sovereign, then he will obviously side with the people who are wanting to kill Thanos, even if that hurts him because they have hurt the Sovereign in the past.
Yeah.
It will be. I'm intrigued to see what they do. I think Thor's going to be the one where we get the Thor 3. I mean, it looks like Guardians of the Galaxy of the trailer and stuff, but that's going to be big in terms of MCU because Guardians of the Galaxy 2, I thought I know we'll say Thanos wasn't in this. I thought like they might have even had Nova Corps getting the stone because I thought the way Phase 3 was going to go was that they'd lose a lot of Infinity Stones over Phase 3, but you know what? Maybe they're playing a clever game where that film next year might just be an obliteration of Thanos killing everyone to get the stones. I'm actually really excited to see what they do because this felt so standalone again, and that's credit to Gunn for doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. The next scene, it's kind of a lot of these were played for laughs. In all honesty, next one is teenage Groot. So maybe by the time we get to the next movie, maybe they're good at.
Yeah, I think. Sorry to interrupt, but
that's all right.
With Groot, one thing that's not been clear, they've said this film was set a few months after the first film. They never say that in the film, which is a bit frustrating because obviously the timings and stuff. I just think that scene's there to show that Groot's going to be fully grown by the time we get around to the next one. Especially as they'll have to jump forward a couple more years now, but. I was going to
say, like, the next movie could be Teenage Groot, like they've done adult Groot, baby Groot, Teenage Groot, and then by the time you get to Infinity War, you're back to adult Groot, or they could go back to adult Groot. I'm fine with either one. And then the last one was like the Stan Lee cameo. It was just like a fun little bit where I guess the Watchers now are canon in the MCU. I didn't know what they were called. I'd seen them before because I collect like Marvel Fact File, and I'd seen the character before, so I knew that they were part of the MCU, but I didn't really care for the cameo. I thought it was a bit on the nose as Stan Lee's cameos.
5 was way too much. They could have done stuff. They could have done stuff before the credits. Let's be honest. They could have tied off one or two of the storylines before the credits. Like they didn't really need Sean Gunn with the new Yondu. They could have had him possibly just taking Yondu.
Well, he got given the arrow anyway, didn't he?
Him being given the arrow was enough, or possibly even him being given the arrow and then him going off and taking the helmet fin and then just walking off holding it. That would have been cool, especially if... I mean, you didn't need the end credit scene of him practicing and then almost stabbing Drax.
Yeah, I'll agree with that.
Like, the Stallone one was probably needed just as kind of the cameo, but it could have possibly been done at the same time with the scene of him at the funeral.
Yeah.
And the Adam Warlock one was definitely one you needed after the credits. The Groot and Stan Lee one were just kind of humorous ones put on top.
I know this is just Guardians of the Galaxy, but I hope that the whole 5-credit scene thing doesn't become a trope now. I think it will still stick to the 2 after this.
I think it was just a joke thing, wasn't it, really, doing 5?
Yeah. Right, gents, I know that we're all really tired now. You could probably people watching at home, you can tell it from the tone of our voice. So final thoughts on Guardians of the Galaxy 2. Tate, I want you to bring up your point about Star-Lord defeating Ego.
Oh, yes. Does this mean that Star-Lord will finally defeat his ego and we will get him being a more kind of grounded, down-to-earth character? I hope so for later films because I feel like his best moments... The humor is needed still there, and maybe this is going to be a film where he takes the lesson and becomes more of a leader of the group instead of kind of being the comical, always fighting over other people leader of the group. I think that this should be his time to stand up, step up, and actually take something for the team. Actually say, like, okay, I'm the leader of this team now. Like, actually take control of it, and that will help the dynamics of the characters between them. Other than that, I like the film, but there is some serious errors of the film. Like, I still cannot believe they put in the bloody Pac-Man scene. Like, it's
complete with waka 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 sound effect as well.
My God,
I loved it. I didn't like the flying fist crap, but I loved the Pac-Man thing.
Do you know what it reminded me of? Green Lantern.
Yeah, I can see that.
And that's not a good thing. I've compared it to 2 things now. I've compared it to Pixels and Green Lantern just one scene. How am I selling this film? Yeah,
I'll defend Pixels. I'll defend Pixels to a lot of people.
Oh yeah, I want to see an entire video of you defending Pixels like you defended the prequels.
We all defended the prequels.
Yeah.
I know, but I want to see George defend.
I can't do it for 40 minutes because it's not worth 40 minutes, but I can defend Pixels.
George, final thoughts on Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2?
Just go and see it. I had a blast of a time. It's a sort of film you can go with multiple people of different ages, different not social groups, but they don't have to like Marvel, they don't have to like films. They're probably going to enjoy it. A lot of casual people like these films. They find them funny. Go in, have a look. You're going to laugh a couple of times. You might not cry, but there are some emotional weighted moments. There's some fantastic action scenes, but all around, it's an entertaining film, and it's to me another solid Marvel film. The third best Marvel sequel, like you guys said, but at the end of the day, that's not an achievement.
I'm kind of more towards what Tate thinks of this movie. I don't think it's an awful film. There's definitely still a lot to like there. I like Kurt Russell, for example, and some of the characterizations and themes that they do bring to the forefront. However, because it's a Marvel movie and they want to make it fun, I don't think that they hit those themes as hard as they probably could have. I think they could have spent a lot more time with characters, dialed back on the action a bit more and the humor. And really just balance the tone, like still have those emotional scenes and still have the funny scenes. Don't get the two crossed over. It's still a film you need to see on the big screen. It's an important one in the Marvel MCU, so absolutely go and see it. The CGI is incredible. The soundtrack, the actual soundtrack by what's his name, Tyler Bates. Nothing to write home about. He uses some of the same themes in the main Guardians theme from the first movie, but it's not an outstanding superhero soundtrack or a soundtrack in general, in all honesty. I'd still recommend people to go and see it, but it pales, in my opinion, in comparison to the first one. So that'll do it for our very, very lengthy review on Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. I think if we'd have gone for 20 more minutes, we'd have broke even with the movie, which is, if that's an achievement, I'll let you decide. So that'll do it for our review. Be sure to comment, subscribe, let us know what you thought of this movie. I realise it's not out yet in the US, but as soon as you've seen it, do drop us a comment. Did you like it more than the first one? How do you think it stands up to other films in the MCU? What are your predictions for the future of the MCU? Anything you like, please do drop us a comment. In terms of what's coming up on the channel in a few days, I guess, at the end of the week, we'll be gearing up for our second-year anniversary video. We've got a lot planned for that. We've got a special Battle of the Brackets, and also an update video. We've got a lot of new shows coming to the channel, and we're going to lay them all out and let you guys know what's going on. There'll be more movie reviews from us as well. I think me and Tom are going to be jumping on reviews for all of the Alien films in lead up to Alien Covenant. There'll be more trailer reactions from me as well, as and when trailers come out. So there's a lot happening with the channel. Be sure to hit that subscribe button and also hit the bell icon to the side so you get a notification every time we upload something new. So that'll do it from us. And until the next video, we'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.